Record. All right. All right. So we're recording now. So I'm not sure, like I haven't done this on my phone yet, but I'm going to try and throw this thing up here. So, hey, I wanted to introduce you to my boy. This is my son, Peyton.
How you doing?
How's it going, Peyton?
I don't know if you pay attention to me on Facebook and stuff, but he's 19. He took a gap year this year from college because wrestling season wouldn't have happened. So, with the whole COVID nonsense going on, so he's off school. But we're getting ready to hopefully get summer on and some work, and then him back to college. So he
Nice.
would freshman this year, but didn't happen. So, and I told him who you were, so I just wanted him to meet you. That's it. But I'll let him go eat his pizza.
Yeah,
See?
I feel sorry for the kids these days in this crap. I mean, think about when we went to college; it was totally different.
Yeah, I mean, well, my college experience was pretty. Man, I want to set this somewhere, but yeah, can you drape it over the? Will it stay there? Suck it back a little bit though. Yeah. Beauty. Perfect. Yep. All right, so nah, I'm all right. It's fine. I need my ugly mug on there anyway. So how are you, man? It's been 18 years. I figured that out today.
Jesus,
That's
18
nuts.
years.
18 years, yeah. Last time I saw you, we were Leech Lake, and you stayed with me and my buddy John while we were fishing Leech Lake for that week. Oh,
Yeah, man, it seems like a lifetime ago, doesn't it?
it seems like a long time ago, but then again, no. I mean,
Yeah. I just hooked up with some friends from Esox Angler magazine, and talked to one of the girls from it, and she's gonna come over this weekend and go ice fishing, and we're gonna have a little reunion.
nice. Cool.
Yeah, I haven't seen her in like 16 years too, and it's bizarre how fast time goes.
Right. Well, that life, life gets away, and what are you gonna do? You got, a million things going on, but
Kids.
so now, yeah, and you got some beautiful daughters there.
Yeah, thanks, man.
What you call it? Where are you at exactly?
I'm in Land O'Lakes, Wisconsin.
Okay, yeah, I know where that's at. Yeah, I
Yeah.
got family that's in Minocqua.
Oh yeah,
So,
that's 45, 50 minutes from here.
right. I spent summers as a kid on the Chip. So that's west of you, but gotta fuck with this thing. My grandparents retired on the Chippewa flowage, so used to be there in the summertime. But anyway, so how's and people probably don't understand, but like when you spend a shit ton of time in a boat with somebody, you kind of talk about everything, right? So like I know that your family's from Moni and all that stuff, which is just up the road.
Yep, in Crete. Yeah, they live in Crete.
Crete now. Okay, all right. What's your call? How's everyone doing? How's your dad?
My dad just retired on the 1st of January, so he's loving that already, and he's already come up here to go fishing once. And yeah, my brother and sister are doing good. My brother was just up here to go fishing, so basically doing the same stuff. I mean, whenever I get any free time, I'm always out on the water, especially ice fishing now. Holy cow.
Well, see, now I moved to Mantino and I'm on a little lake, but the sons of bitches on this lake, man, they keep killing the lake. Some knucklehead keeps pouring herbicide in the lake and murdering all the fish. I've only been here for like 3 years now, but I guess a year before I got here, they did it. And then they just did it this last summer. And it killed me, man. I probably put 8 grand in fish in the lake, including muskies and all that. And we were out there in boats scooping them up. Like, and I mean, I put muskies in there 3 years ago, and they were over 32 inches. They were huge. Like it was
Dang.
working out nice. And yeah, now I we only scooped up like 4 or 5 of them, but I suspect the ones that didn't float, still died. So everything big was gone. And I mean, it's crazy what you see in a lake when you're fishing versus when everything dies. Like there's all these like 22-inch largemouth bass and stuff like that I'm like, we never caught any of these. They were right there, but, they're there, but you're not catching them. And then we had a bunch of like tripoid grass carp in there that were like 44, 46 inches long. They were like tanks, and they're
Wow.
gone too. So I got to figure out what to do once spring comes. I stock lake perch in there and all that stuff. I was trying to make it, my situation with getting paralyzed, uh, like traveling sucks. So I'm trying to make it that, I can just fish here. And my boys hooked me up with like my hands are paralyzed. So like I'm paralyzed like here, and then my hands are pretty much spatulas. So they got me this rig that uh, straps me into a spinning rod. And then actually, once I practice a little bit, I could cast it pretty all right. It's kind of like kissing my sister because I was pretty serious about fishing before. So
Yeah.
it's not, I do it every once in a while, but it's not something I'd rather see the boys fish. Um,
Yeah.
we took a guide out on Lake Michigan for smallies this last August, and we had fun. We caught a bunch of nice 3, 4, 5 pound smallies. It was world class fishery. It was
Wow.
fun. Um, so and I don't know what you want to talk about or whatever, but why aren't you guiding anymore? Can I ask that?
Yeah. Basically the reason I got out of it was because of my kids. It was,
I can totally
you
see
know,
that.
in my situation, in order to make a living to guide full time, to guide mostly year round, I had to travel to northern Minnesota every summer for 4 months because
Right.
we couldn't fish for muskies down in Kincaid. And I mean, that was the greatest thing on earth when I was single and a bachelor and having fun. And then when I settled down and got married and had kids, it was when I would leave, and have to say goodbye to those two little girls, when they're little toddlers. I mean, it killed me.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And it was really the only way that I, could support the family and make a living. So it was like, it just got to the point where I couldn't take it anymore. I mean, you know what it's like when they're toddlers. I mean, you only get that once, and
Absolutely. There's
that's
there's
the
no doubt that
greatest.
I
Yeah.
think you're making a smart move. Um, it seems, like fishing is and the job you had, that's a dream job, and you did it well. I got to tell you, like I took a bunch of different guides out, and I never learned more than I hope that someone that I was out with doesn't see this and get mad, but I never learned more than I was out with you, and you had the fishery biology degree from Southern Illinois also. Like, I mean, every single time I was out with you, it was a learning experience. Like I was listening to what you were saying. I mean, we were, talking about music and partying and girls and everything else too. But like the fishing stuff, like I really learned a lot. I've learned a lot from other guides, but yeah, no, and I mean, I think we're really close in age. Like, you might be a year younger than me. I'll be 50 this summer.
Yeah. I'll be 48.
Okay, you'll be four. Okay, right. So a couple years younger than me. So yeah, I mean, as far as like a dude to hang out with, like I got along with you. Like it was, it was cool. Um, but I worked, my construction company, and man, I'd work 80 plus hours a week, and I broke my neck when my boys were a year and a half old, and it gave me a whole lot of time on my hands. Like I you know, went from working 80 plus hours a week to looking at the ceiling tiles in a hospital for 4 months, trying to figure out what the hell I'm going to do. When I got home, like they approached me in the hospital and they were like, hey, we've got this um, quad rugby stuff and these other sports you can play, trying to get me interested in that stuff. I'm like, listen, I got kids. I got things to do with those guys. I'm not going to be like, playing sports for myself or anything like that. So when I got home, it was all about the kids. And, I was not the greatest student ever. I mean, I was a decent student, but not a great student. Um, my sons, they have 4 point grade point averages, and they're going to be engineers. And they were, they finished their high school wrestling careers as the number one or number 2 and 3 guy, wins all time in the school and stuff like that. So like, they're going to wrestle in college. It's been, I wouldn't have traded it. I say it to people and people look at me strange, but even being paralyzed, it's been the greatest time of my life, like raising those kids, like having that time and doing that stuff. I mean, this will be the first year in 10 years I haven't been at the state finals with a kid in the, at state that qualified for state. So
Wow.
we're not wrestling. Illinois is not, I know Wisconsin's a little more open than Illinois is, but Illinois is nuts. I mean, there's no wrestling. There's no practice. There's no nothing.
Yeah, I mean, they like some of the sports, they do like limited, it's, shorter seasons, no fans, I mean, it's not the same for the kids.
No, no. And I mean, I suggested to my boys that they take that gap year because I want them to get the full college experience as far as like, go to college, go to parties, go do the things that you want to do, meet people. Um, their life has been, I don't know, very structured. I've driven them from Oklahoma and Missouri, Iowa, Michigan, Wisconsin, Indiana. We've wrestled everywhere. Uh, but their life has been that. And then you wrestled, right? I believe.
Yeah.
Okay. So, they were serious. They were cutting 15 pounds and, they were built like me and you. They were like lean guys. So they didn't have a lot to cut. During wrestling season, there almost is no social life except for, after that third day of competing, they all go out and eat whatever the hell they want to eat and stuff like that. But, I was looking forward to them going to college and being able to do what they want to do and, getting a little more social life and stuff like that. Um, but if the COVID thing's going on, you're not going to get that college experience anyway. So, they were better off. They work construction. They've been doing carpentry since they were 10. So they they build a bunch of shit. I mean, it's been fun as far as that goes. It's still been the greatest time for me.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I've been doing for a living for the last 7 years since I moved up here is
I saw that.
carpentry.
Yeah, I saw that. How do you like that?
I the messed up thing is that I got into a situation to where I was making really good money and tons of business and everything was going great, and my back, my back
Oh,
can't handle it.
yeah.
Um, we're doing, how it is. I mean, when you're framing, I mean, everything you do is extremely physical and heavy, and being on a roof. I mean, my back is so messed up that I can't physically do it anymore. And this past year, I missed probably 3 months of work with my back being out, and then spent several grand on chiropractors, and I can't physically do it. I'll get better, and then I'll go back to work, and then if I may go a week or two and everything's okay, and then all of a sudden, just all it takes is that one thing. You lift something heavy and you twist, and all of a sudden, oh, there goes the back. And then
So now,
it's
have you been to the doc to get it checked out? Like, what can they do for you?
well, I mean, I had X-rays done, and I just got a lot of damage to my bottom two vertebrae. Um, Apparently, they had been out of whack for a long, long time, so the discs have worn down considerably. So they tip out really easy, and
Right,
then when
right.
they, and then what happens? Then once it tips out, then you overcompensate and walk weird, and then all of a sudden my pelvic bones would, my pelvic joint would
Yeah,
pop out,
sciatic
and
nerve
then
all screwed up.
yeah, and then sciatic nerve, and then it's terrible. So it's been tough. I mean, this was a really tough year, and it's made me realize that I have to do something else. And it's like, holy cow, I'm 47 years old. It's like I got to reinvent myself again, you know. So
Yeah, I've
I'm
been there,
starting.
man.
Yeah,
I've been there. You
yeah,
know, I
and I'm
came out of the whole paralyzed thing, and I had to figure out how to get dressed. I had to figure out how to do everything on my own. Uh, my ex-wife, she was in the breeze, like, a couple months after I got home. She was like, I'm not doing this. Uh, so like I was put in the basement and figured out, man, like, I don't know, you're an industrious guy, and you're also like a guy that's got no problem talking to people. Um, I remember you doing pretty good with the girls and stuff like that when we were young. So I'm sure that you're gonna do just fine as far as figure out another path. Uh, for me, I ran into a guy who was in the military. He was 20 years old. He was in England. They snuck off the base. He dove into a pool, broke his neck. So he was paralyzed, very similar to the way I was paralyzed. And when he got home, he had some things going his way, right? He had like the military pension, and like I think the military bought him a house and everything else. But he got a job as a real estate broker, and he did fine. He managed to make enough money up there doing that sort of thing. And I don't know if that's an option for you, because it's certainly not labor intensive. It's pretty much just sitting in front of a computer doing that stuff. And then, you know, up by you, there's got to be a ton of turnover as far as vacation homes and all that kind of stuff too.
yeah. The one thing that is different up here, when ice dams, ice dams are a huge issue up here,
Right.
and that's something that like when we were flipping homes or we were doing remodels, that's something that we would address and fix. And there's this thing called a Michigan roof. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but it's basically when you insulate, especially when you have like a 1.5 story home or vaulted ceilings. You don't have an attic, so there's really no way to insulate the attic. So you actually have and you have to insulate from the outside. You take the shingles off,
Yeah.
and then you put down the 4 inches of foam board,
Right.
and then and then you base it. That's what, like I said, they call it a Michigan roof. So I mean, that's one of the ways that you fix them. And then, so what I've decided to do, because it's such a huge problem up here, I mean, you drive around and almost everybody's, even on new construction, there's still issues, unless you have big energy hills on your trusses, you still get that heat loss right at the edge, at the eave, to
Sure.
where the snow, you get heat loss up through the top plate, and it melts the snow, and then it causes huge ice dams, even on brand new construction. And so I've researched and figured out every single friggin' way there is to fix an ice dam.
Yeah.
And so that's what I'm gonna do. And then of course now this winter we've had no snow, so it's like, so I've got, there's nobody calling about ice dams because there are no ice dams yet. We only have like 5 inches of snow on the ground. That's it.
No, that's crazy. I tell you what, here, um, and I mean, I've only been here for the 3 winters, but it's been less ice and less ice every year. We were trying to every year, right around mid-February, the boys get this like 2 week period where they don't wrestle. So we were gonna have like people out and fish fry and everything else, because we got quite a few bluegills and crappies, and like I said, I put perch in there and everything else. But finding a weekend that everybody's available and that we actually have safe ice is crazy here. Like we see people out there ice fishing. I'm on a 10-acre little spot of water. There's a 32-acre lake across the street from me, and there's people out there. I can see them like in their little shanty fishing, but like that ice has got to be 3 inches. It's and these are big fat dudes out there. Like I'm like, man, that seems dangerous. But at least you got usually got ice up there. But yeah, usually you got feet of snow and 5 inches. That's crazy.
Yeah, last year at this time we already had close to 3 feet of snow on the ground, and right now we have 5 inches. Because I even picked up A buddy of mine has a plowing business in the winter, and his main guy, moved or whatever it was, so he needed another guy to plow. So I, said, okay, I'll plow for you too. We haven't even
Yeah.
had to plow yet.
Right, right, right.
So
Oh,
I'm
that I
like,
mean, my uncle was on Lake Mulby, which is a private, like 38 acre, 40 acre lake. And it was great fishing. It was just largemouth bass and perch. That was all that was in there. And um, in the wintertime, the snow would be 3 feet deep, and the deer, I guess, would walk the same path over the lake to get to the other
yep,
side. And they'd make like a little path in the snow, and he would take pictures of it. And it was 3, 4 feet deep of snow that was on the ice all the time. And then the deer would walk through there. Um, so, right, it's insane. Now, that kind of a business, do you like sub out labor, or how do like what's the process of getting rid of ice dams?
well, I'm I'm going to be buying. I've already talked to the company over in Minnesota. I'm going to be buying this thing. They're called steam machines, and once the ice dams form and they get big. I mean, some of these ice dams on these houses up here, I mean, at the eve will be 16 inches deep of ice.
Wow, that'll
And,
rip the eve right off.
well, and then what happens is it just starts to keep backing up, and you get that pooling of water, and then it goes up under the shingles, and then gets
Right.
in and then destroys the drywall. I mean, it causes mold. I mean, it's a horrible thing. So with these steam machines, it's high temperature, low pressure steam. It's not water, and you basically cut the ice dams off in chunks, and then just toss the big ice blocks down. So you remove the ice dams. I mean, that's band-aid work, right? But I mean, you're still getting the ice dams and preventing the damage. And then what my goal is to actually then fix the heat loss, not just keep doing the band-aid every year. I want to, you know, that's my main goal, is to eliminate the ice dams in the first place. So that way these people won't be losing all their heat through the roof or
Yeah,
through their
sure.
attic, and so eventually, that's the plan, is just to, and it's not as labor intensive. And like now, if on these houses that I need to do a Michigan roof, I've done a lot of roofing, man, and that's about as hard as it gets on your back. So, that I would sub out.
Yeah.
There's some, I know some good roofing crews up here, and I would just sub that out. And but if they've got attics, I can fix it if they've got attics. There's ways to fix it.
Well, it seems like you've adapted pretty good as it is, man. I mean, you've only been doing this kind of work for 7 years, and it sounds like you know what you're talking about.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's my dad, was in the construction industry for 50 years. And,
Okay.
when I was in high school, every summer, even in most of college, every summer I was working construction, start off as a grunt, a laborer, and then just kind of work your way up. And then here I've been working with these guys that are, really talented. And I've learned a lot. I always take in as much information as I can to learn from people. And I've, gotten to where we're doing some pretty cool stuff. But like I said, I just can't physically do it anymore. You know, the, you know, I can still enjoy the finish work. I'm good at, I'm kind of anal, and so, I'm good at the finish work and the trim work and all that stuff. But the framing, man, I can't
Sure.
physically do it.
Yeah, humping them big boards and stuff like that. No, I get it. Part of that for my boys was like I was Mr. Miyagi in them. You know what I mean? Like that was that was training all summer for wrestling, was humping 22-foot Douglas for 2x12s for rafters and stuff like that. And they were doing that stuff at 14, 15 years old. They were building, stuff like that. So, and they'd see a difference when they get on the wrestling mat. They throw, that's strength, that is functional strength, not curls for the girls, sort of a thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, I mean it worked out good for them. I mean, if I would have had a line on a gig where they could bale hay, I would have had them do that, because that's a heavy back workout also. But yeah, I mean, it sounds like you got to find a way to get some relief too, because I mean that shit's got to be painful as far as
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, I mean, it's been better because now I know my limitations, and the guys at work are good about it. They know to like to keep me from doing the things, they're like, all right, well, don't do that, but I mean, it is, I mean, just going up and down ladders, going up and, 3 or 4 sets of scaffolding, just all the stuff you do on a daily basis doing this job is, unfortunately, my back just literally cannot take it. And it's a
No.
shame because
Right.
I,
Now,
I
what about
agree.
what about sales? What about, like, I mean, I know a couple contractors down by me that, I wouldn't have them personally build me anything. I don't think they could, but they're paper contractors. They're sales guys. They go out and sell siding and roofing and, jobs. They just make a commission on the push a pencil, you know what I mean? That sort of thing. Usually bigger companies need, like when I go through like Monaco and stuff like that, there's always those builders that have the log cabin models and stuff like that. Like, the business. You are good at talking to people. Hell, your seminars that were at the musky shows and stuff like that were always entertaining. So that's half the battle when you're trying to sell.
Yeah, I mean, that's the funny thing is that's what my brother's doing now. He's doing sales for a huge roofing company down there, and
Okay.
he's killing it. I mean,
Right.
he's crushing it. And you know what I was kind of envisioning with this ice dam thing was is considering, I mean, like all of northern Wisconsin, it deals with it. So if I could get this company large enough, and eventually either have like consistent subs or even hire on employees, I could then focus more on sales and getting the jobs than actually physically doing them.
Yeah, right, 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 right. Because I mean, for me, I'm busting around in a wheelchair. Like I just go get the jobs, and then I'm at the job all day, making sure the boys are doing exactly what I want. But I'm a salesman, and then the foreman that just points his finger, which is odd for me because I was always a guy that was very, very involved. I mean, that's how I broke my neck. I was up on the scaffold. Um, but yeah, so I want to talk about fishing because I do have some musky fishermen that, saw that I posted this and wanted to talk about that stuff. But I did want to catch up and see how you were doing. Now, with your daughters and stuff like that, what are they into? Are they, do they play any sports up there? Or now, are
Yeah,
they living with you or the wife?
it's split custody,
Okay.
and so they're half the time they're with me. And the funny thing is, I live across the street from my ex-wife.
Nice. Good for you. I live 2 miles away. So yeah, right. It
Yeah.
was hop, skip, and a jump, and good, good, good. I'll tell you what, man. You're like, if I had it to do over again, and someone said, "Here's the thing: you could either be not paralyzed, or you can have this life with your kids that you have." I don't know if I trade. I mean, this totally sucks, man. Like I gotta put up with lip out of people that I could shit bigger than before, and everything else, and like the whole world's different as far as everything goes. Being a guy in a wheelchair, it's painful. It's hassle. Like when I had to be at a wrestling tournament at 7 a.m., I had to get up at 4 a.m. if I got to shower and get ready and everything else. It's a big pain in the ass. Um, but the time I got with my sons, my daughter, I have a daughter too, she's not talking to me right now, but I mean, there's nothing I can do about it. She's 21 years old. She's going to do whatever she wants to do. But she was a gymnast. The boys were in wrestling. I coached wrestling for years. It, I wouldn't trade it for anything. It's been the most fun I've had. And I had quite a fun time being a young guy running around doing everything I was doing. I got paralyzed when I was 30. But um, yeah, I don't think you're making even a remote mistake as far as my sons are 19 now. It's gonna be over soon. Like it's so weird to think that they're gonna get married and all that other shit, and it's gonna be like I don't. I'll hear from once a week, but
Yeah. I mean, I take advantage of every moment I have with my girls.
good.
And it's, I mean, I just, I came from a real strong family,
Yeah,
real tight family, and I just knew that, yeah, I was having a great time fishing and guiding and traveling and going around the country doing seminars, and it was like living the dream. But I knew once I had kids that that was then going to be my number one priority. I mean, family is everything. So yeah, do I miss the guiding and all that stuff? Yes, I really do sometimes, but like you said, I wouldn't trade it. The bond that I have with my girls is so incredible. We have such a strong relationship, and they know they can always come to me, and it's really cool. My kids are great. My oldest is in 8th grade now. She's a straight A student. Just smart as heck. She's an incredible softball player. I mean,
cool.
she can hit like you cannot. Her fielding is a little weak. She focuses mostly on hitting, but like, for Christmas she got one of those tripod hitting machines where you it's like the softball is on cables, so when you hit it, it wraps around the pole and then
Yeah,
starts swinging back. She was out there in the snow like 5 days in a row after Christmas doing it. It's
I'll tell you
unbelievable
what,
the way she can hit.
the beauty thing about the having girls too is if they're serious about sports, it's going to be 10 times easier to get that college scholarship to go play in college and everything else. I mean, the like I picked wrestling and gymnastics for my kids because I figured they're the hardest sports you could pick as far as something you got to really be dedicated to succeed in it. And if I figured if they fell short, that my sons could go play football or they could do something that was, not as difficult as being a wrestler. Um, but they were terrible choices as far as when me and you were in high school, there was 279 D1 wrestling programs in college. There's 78 now.
Holy cow.
Yes, it's just, and some guys blame Title IX, because they got to spend as much on, but if that's bullshit, it all has to do with the fact that those sports, they never did, they don't make money, and college has become a money making thing. It's not a thing that they're trying to have activities and sports and, school spirit and the whole thing, the whole college experience. They're trying to make a business out of it. So there's people making money out of it. And those sports, they never made money. You know what I mean? Like nobody, you'd be in high school, and if you had a kid win state, that'd be not as big of a deal as your football team qualifying for, the state tournament. It'd be,
Yep.
everyone losing their mind over football. And I mean, I played football. It's a stupid sport compared to wrestling. Like wrestling is one on one. You're responsible for yourself. It's all encompassing, but Americans as a whole were pretty fucking stupid. Uh, but I mean, like the things that are really good, people don't see what's really good. The things that are like just like it drives me nuts to watch like an MMA fight because the crowd ruins it for me. Right now, it's okay to watch because there are no crowds. But if there's no blood in 30 seconds, the people are booing and like
Yep.
I'm like, you understand what it takes for this guy to cut 20 pounds off and train the way he does and everything else, and you're upset because he's no one's bleeding yet? Like this
Yeah.
is not. You guys are idiots. Uh, so so it's been tough. I mean, as far as that goes, um, my boys have always done really well in wrestling, but you know, 30 years ago they would have had D1 scholarships, and now forget it. They're going to wrestle D3. So
Oh,
but girls on the other hand, girls wrestling in too is picking up big time, and there's a lot of college programs that are picking up a girls squad. So like the talent pool is still small, but there's teams that are looking for people to fill weights, so they're getting scholarships. And then I know a few girls that I went to school with that played college softball, and I mean, what a great experience, if that's the route she chooses to go. But I mean, and nice for your kids to be um, up there. I mean, life up there is definitely, as far as I go, way more, way more entertaining, way more fun than it is down here, even though you guys have like 10 months of winter. I mean, winter's nuts, man. I don't know how you deal with it. Like I used to fly into Canada in the last week of May for a fishing trip, and the guy was like, just a week ago we were in the snow machines, running
Yeah,
around, and that's almost June, and they still have winter. So like
yeah,
that's crazy. So I
yeah.
mean, the ice cream business sounds like a good business because winter's there all the time.
Yeah. I mean, the neat thing is, here the fishing opener is like right around the middle of May, right? And some years the lakes are still frozen. So there's no, for the fishing opener, there's no open water. People are ice fishing on the fishing opener. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, yeah, it's a solid 6 months of winter. And
Right. Yeah, we have a solid like 3.5 months of winter.
and
That,
and
that's
come February, I mean, it's been a really weird winter this year. I mean, very warm, very mild, no snow. But I mean, typically this time of year, especially, January and February, I mean, we'll see air temperatures at night, minus 30, minus 35 air temps. Like, holy cow.
yeah. When you're ice
And
fishing, you're going through 1.5 feet of ice, right?
yeah, oh, I mean, there are times where we'll get, over 2 feet of ice.
Right
You got to
now,
put it.
so let's talk about fishing a little bit. Like, I don't know shit about ice fishing. We moved here, and I'm like, it sounds like a really cool thing to do, and I like to eat fish. So that sounds like the time to eat fish would be out of the ice and everything else. I hear that like once that cap is on there, the water is crystal clear underneath the ice and everything else. If you were a guy going out ice fishing, do you ice fish spots that have fish on them because you fish them in the summertime, or do you go spots that you like? How would you scout out a brand new piece of water for ice fishing?
Um, well, the one thing is it all depends on, the individual lake, and depth, but if, some of these lakes that, maybe the deepest holes are, 20, 30 feet, you'd be surprised in the winter. Like if there's any type of, like deep mud flats, where there's bugs, I mean, the panfish are always down in that. It seems like they slide into the deeper basins. Um, so I'm always kind of targeting stuff really closely adjacent to those deep basins.
Okay.
Like, I do a lot of walleye fishing at night. Like I had a buddy up, a guy from the musky industry actually came up and visited me last night, and we went out and did a nighttime walleye trip on a lake over here. And we put tip ups out, and we had 10 flags last night after dark, and caught four of them. We kept missing them, but I mean, he got a couple 22-inch walleye. We got, a 15-incher and a 14-incher. I mean, it was a lot of fun. And again, it's like I'm targeting, there's a thing up here. Some of these lakes don't have many weeds, which is strange. A lot of lakes up here don't have weeds, but they have
Yeah.
this stuff called sandgrass. And like, so the fish will be, a lot of times during the daytime, these fish will be out in this deep sandgrass. And then in the evening or at night, they'll slide up onto points or humps that are close by. And it's unbelievable. Like right at dark, you'll catch them in like the 20, say 20 feet of water at the drop off of the point, and then as the night goes on, they just keep moving up shallower and shallower. And by the end of the night last night, we were catching them in like 7 feet of water.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I
Wow.
mean, we got our last fish last night at 11:30.
Yeah. Wow. That's a good like 7 hours past dark. I mean, yeah, it's like 4:30 and it's dark out now. So yeah, so okay, so because like I said, I don't know the first damn thing about it. We just go out there and drill a bunch of holes and then you know try different spots to see what the hell happens. And I had a buddy of mine who is this guy, man. He's carpenter, but one of the best fishermen I've ever met. He came out here for about an hour and a half and he caught 18 fish, and the rest of us were out here like for like 5 hours and we probably caught a dozen fish between all of us. So he knew exactly what the hell he was doing. But yeah, so I mean, like I never know. And then I'm impatient. Like the my son Peyton that you met, we're the same way. Like I can't sit still. I don't like the host sitting there and barely moving something. Oh Jesus Christ! I'm gonna kill myself. That I think that's why I enjoyed musky fishing so much, was that it was a lot of work. You know what I mean? It was a lot of casting and stuff like that. Um, you were the first guy that I had trolled with as far as that went down on Kincaid. Now, do you ever take a trip and go back down? I mean, geez, man, you were like a rock star down there. Sponsored by the barbecue joint and everything else. You ever take a trip and head back down there?
No, I haven't been down there since I moved up here. My God, it's like 13 hours away.
Right,
Um,
right. Really far, yeah.
yeah, no, I haven't. Yeah, it's strange. I mean, there's so much water up here. I mean, when you live in a town that's called Land O'Lakes,
Yeah,
I
right.
mean, there's a reason. I mean, it's if you look at a map, I mean, you can't throw a rock and you almost hit a lake up here, and so I've been like just a madman exploring. That's one of my favorite things to do is to explore and so I've just been. I don't like to. It's funny, like I like to learn stuff on my own sometimes too. So I always like to go out and just go blind to a new lake and just and try to devour it as fast as I can and learn as much as I can about it. And unfortunately, like overall, the fishing up here is not that good. Like the majority of the lakes up here are not very good. You know, the
It's too much
the pan,
pressure.
the pan
Yeah, there's,
it, the DNR is so short staffed that they can't properly manage these lakes right. And I mean, one of my best friends is a biologist, fisheries biologist that I went to school with, and
yeah.
I mean, he's constantly complaining. He's like, what can we do? You can't fix all these lakes. And so the nice thing is that I've been able to find lakes and certain times of year on these lakes where I can, do really well. And this walleye fishing for me is like a whole new experience because I never walleye fished before in my life.
No,
I mean,
no, no. I
it was
avoid that like
musky. Yeah, it was muskies, and that was pretty much it. And then every once in a while, when the muskies were spawning, we'd do a bunch of crappie fishing. But other than that, it was muskies around my brain forever.
yeah. I remember you talking about doing some pan fishing out by the Crab Orchard or something like that down in Southern Illinois, and like I think you hadn't pan fished in so long. Like you were like it was crazy that we were out there catching like bluegills and crappies and stuff like that. Um, and so with muskies, I have people that see like the muskie pictures, the muskies that I caught, and then we'll talk about fishing, and I talk about muskie fishing, and I absolutely love it. And then they'll say something like, "I've never caught a muskie. I really want to get into it." And the first thing I say is, don't do that. That's a really bad idea." And they're like, "Why? It sounds like you really love it." I go, oh, "I love it. It's like fucking crack. It's like it's heroin. But it's the worst thing ever." I go and I relay this story to people that I'm a general contractor, and I would only get maybe like 4 rain days in a summer that I could like actually just peel away, throw the boat in the lake, and go fishing for the day. And I think I went out 3 times where I spent 10 hours on the water, beating the shit out of the water. Like, I mean, working as hard as I could. And, I try and find some confidence in what I do and don't waste time changing up lures and all that other shit too much. But, changed up a little bit because I didn't see shit. And I mean, I was out there for 30 hours and I didn't see a damn fish. And I came home the third night and I'm like, this my whole summer is going to be wrecked. I took all the musky gear out of the boat, put the smallmouth stuff in there, and I'm like, I'm going to go right over to LaSalle, the cooling lake, and I'm going to catch 13 smallies on Rapalas banging it off the rocks. No problem. I'm going to have a day where there's going to be a smallmouth with my Rapala T-boned, and there's going to be another smallmouth trying to get it. It's going to be
Yep.
great. I load everything in the boat, wait for the next rain day. The next rain day comes. I get in the boat or get in the fucking truck, pull it down the driveway, and I stop and I'm like, man, today could be the day. So then I back up, put all the musky gear in there, and then I go musky fishing. I did on the fourth day catch a 42-inch muskie, which I was thrilled because I would have killed myself if I would have came home with nothing.
Yeah.
Flunked again. But musky fishing it's like that, the books that Pete wrote, that muskies suck it's an absolute freaking, but everything else doesn't compare. Like when I see guys holding up bass, I just like giggle. I'm like, you're missing it. Like that's not a thing, man. That's a, I don't know. That's just silly what you're doing. But like, we're catching fish that eat those fish. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, I remember you telling me about catching an 11-pound largemouth with that red and white, I think you called it a tampon or something like that. Jake,
Kotex.
yeah, Kotex,
Kotex.
Kotex, right? Uh, so, and I mean, for you, that was like, it was probably awesome. Like you caught that 11-pound fish, but not anywhere near as what's the biggest muskie? I think it was on the lax, or what was it that you,
I, I
what
caught
was
a
it on?
couple 50, I caught a couple 55 inchers on Lake Vermilion.
Okay, well, that's my shirt here on. I took the boys up to Pike Bay on Vermilion, and we stayed for the week. I bought a pontoon boat, and the boys been musky fishing since they were little. Garrett's biggest is a 47, and Peyton's biggest is only like a 39. But they're all Illinois fish. We caught some muskies on Vermilion when we were up there, and Vermilion was terrific. That was a really nice body of water as far as the fishing went. Um, I have some friends that spend a couple weeks of summer on Vermilion, but right. So that bass, 11-pound bass, man, guys had cut off their right nut for 11-pound bass, and you probably just flipped it back in the lake like whatever.
I don't even, I was probably being a little dramatic because I thought it was a muskie and I was excited. And then when I saw it was a bass, I was like, oh, damn it.
Right,
And
right.
it was the biggest bass I'd ever caught and probably will ever catch. But I mean, I don't even think I got a picture of it. I just,
Nice.
picked it up, looked at it, and then just tossed it back in the lake. And my client was like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "It's a green carp. I don't care."
Oh, right. I don't care. I caught and I mean, I actually mounted it because I know I wouldn't catch another one. I caught an 8.5-pound largemouth on a Jake, and I caught it at boat side. It hit like in the eights. I was like, I thought it was a muskie also. And I mean, the 90-pound test, I just picked him up right out of the water. And I'm like, what in the hell? And I think I called my wife at the time. I'm like, I just caught this monstrous bass. And she's like, well, keep it. And I'm like, all right. So I did. And I mounted it because I don't bass fish. Like it's a pretty fish, but it's nothing that, that I want. Then the only other fish that I have mounted is that freaking, you remember the muskie that I caught with you and it
Yep.
didn't make, uh, what you call it. So that was an awesome story. I tell people about that all the time that like you got in the water with that fish and tried to swim it below the thermocline, trying to get that fish to revive. We thought it revived. We were
Yep.
back in the bay putting on brand new trebles, and the DNR guy came out there. He's like, "There's a 4-foot fish struggling off that point." And we went out
Yeah.
there, and it was my fish. So
Yeah. That was a
uh,
shame.
it was, but I think it was. What's the Rusty Lilyquist has a different mentality on. I read some articles on keeping fish than like Pete does, and if he thinks that a fish is on its way out, he's fine with I guess harvesting that fish. Uh, and I think that fish was probably in its last summer as far as that went. But
Yeah, I mean,
um,
fish in Illinois typically don't get over 50. I mean, they grow fast, but the thing about growing fast is you don't live as long.
right,
So it just seems like, I mean, I fished Kincaid all those years, and I don't think there's another human being that put as much time on the water as I did. And, my biggest was 49 and 7/8. I never broke a 50 on Lake Kincaid.
wow, wow, wow. See, now I saw our favorite lake was Snake Den Hollow. It's only 160 acres, clearest lake in Illinois. And my favorite thing about that lake was that it was clear. So like I could go out there and see a dozen fish in a day. You know what I mean? We would, because you could see 20 feet down in this lake. And like most of the water we were fishing was 50 feet deep. It was all over the treetops. It was like a flooded valley sort of a situation. Um, but I saw multiple 50-inch fish plus in that lake. Just never hooked in. The biggest I got there was a 46. But um, yeah, I mean, usually I don't even give that lake up to everybody, but now I just did. Uh, it's small, and you're only allowed to use like 9.9 or electric, out there. But I would put the pontoon boat in the water and take the boys out there. That's where they got their biggest muskies was on that lake. It's tough fishing because it's so clear, but
Yeah.
it's more fun just to see them and stuff like that. I actually have a trip. First time since I got injured, I booked a trip to Eagle. So I'm taking my
Nice.
son. Yeah, and I talked to a couple people up there, and they said the fishing. I haven't been up there in 18 years since I got injured, and they said the fishing is 100% different. Like it's a whole nother world up there now, as far as the fishing's way better. Um, I used to avoid Wisconsin like the plague, though. I tell you what, the fishing pressure for muskies up there was too much. Like, I mean, Minnesota had some pressure, but not as much as Wisconsin.
Yeah, I think the pressure in Minnesota now is probably just as bad.
Mm.
I mean, especially with COVID and the Canada restrictions. I heard
Oh
from
yeah.
guys over there that the lakes were just completely overrun with people.
See now, that's what the people in Canada were saying that there was like no pressure for an entire summer. They think that this next summer is going to be gangbusters just because there's no one on the water.
Yeah, I believe it.
I mean, and those are, I think you used to fish Lake of the Woods a little more, right? Like if you would go to
Yeah,
Canada.
yeah. I fished Lake of the Woods for almost 20 years, and yeah, that it's like if you're gonna pick one of those big bodies of water and try to learn it, you can't just keep hopping around. You got to stick to one body of water and try and learn it. And I mean, what a giant body of water that is. Holy cow.
Oh, I showed it to my sons on a map. It's ludicrous. Eagle Lake. I said, listen, if you were in the west arm of Eagle and you wanted to go all the way to the east, like southernmost point, it'd take you 3.5 hours in a boat to get across Eagle Lake. And I said, look at this lake, and then look at Lake of the Woods. You could put like 10 Eagle Lakes inside of Lake of the Woods. Like it's a massive piece of water. Um, so okay, so but musky fishing. I musky fished a little tiny bit, like nah, I shouldn't say musky fishing. I caught a couple muskies that were small on the Chippewa flowage when I was a kid. It was always the thing that was revered, when there was a muskie fisherman. Like when somebody was, oh, that's Abe. He fishes for muskies and he's got all these huge muskie lures. And it was a real big deal. If you were in the bars, that was the big stories were of muskies and all that other stuff. That was my biggest letdown with watching Grumpy Old Men was that seriously, the big fish you catch is a catfish.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Like, what the hell are you talking about? I don't even know if
I
there's
know.
catfish up there. Like, we're in Minnesota. What the hell are you talking about? But muskies were like legendary as far as it goes. I mean, going into Hayward, and the all that there's a bar there that's got them all in glass and everything else, all the muskies.
Yeah, I can't think of it either.
I don't know which way what it is, but
I've
it's
I've been in it.
yeah, right. It's got all those like Louis spray and all and I mean, honestly, that stuff, even the historical musky stuff, those are interesting enough stories to read about. The way those guys used to cheat, they would stuff those damn fish full of freaking split shots and everything else, and it would just turn out that one muskie was in Minocqua was 1 ounce heavier than the muskie that was in Hayward, so they could claim, they had the world record over here just for tourism, you know what I mean? And then no one would bust them because they wanted the tourism to come their way. But
Yep.
um, so okay, so I mean, people that are watching the podcast, uh, I met Chad because my ex-wife bought me a birthday present, and the birthday present was a guided day on Lake Kincaid with Chad, and like it's one of the best things she did, like one of the only good things she did. But uh, went down there. a day in the water with you. We didn't need to bring anything. You supplied everything. Uh, and then the knowledge and everything that you had was fantastic. And on that trip, I got my biggest muskie, which is, I think it's just under 49 inches. At least that's what the taxidermist charged me for. Uh, and It was a great day. It was a terrific day. It was too warm. The fish bellied up, and we spent like 3 hours trying to put that thing back in the water. But um, do you talk to anyone down there? Like Kincaid, is that still a decent musky fishery? Are they still stocking that lake?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't know about the stocking program still. When I left, I mean, they were still doing it. It was either every year, or every other year. So I'm not sure about that, but I've got a close friend that I do talk to from time to time down there, and he was fishing Kincaid this year, and he did really well. There's still big fish in there. Um, and he didn't think that there was any issue. He had thought he had heard that they had taken the spillway barrier down, and I'm like,
Oh,
oh my, that would be terrible if that happened. But I think he was wrong. I think that spillway barrier is still there, because that was what made Kincaid so good. Was once they put that barrier up so those fish couldn't leave in the spring and go over the spillway. I mean, that the population on that lake exploded I think that was in like 2001 or 2002 when they put that barrier up. And I mean, then it got to be, I mean, the population got crazy. It was awesome.
now people outside of muskies need to understand that every muskie in Illinois is a stocked fish. There's no, well, I think rivers might have some that are, I think the Kankakee, they say there's some muskies in it, and they can spawn in that, right? Because it's flowing.
You know, I don't know for sure. I mean, because of the fact that, the way the rivers fluctuate, and, I'm not sure how well they succeed on those as well.
Okay.
Um,
So even the ones that went over the spillway in at Kincaid, they couldn't propagate either.
well, yeah, because they went into a creek, and then that creek went into the Big Muddy River, and the Big
Yeah.
Muddy River is, perfectly named. I mean, you can't even see a half an inch into the water.
Right, right, right. So that's the so like for explaining for people that don't understand, that's the reason that they don't is because muskies don't have postparental care. So a bass and everything else, they spawn, they fan the nest, they keep it clean, they keep it oxygenated. Muskies spawn and then go right back out to eating and do whatever they were doing. And then every single, it sounds crazy, and you probably know like what like per pound a large female muskie lays in eggs, but it's thousands and thousands of eggs and nothing survives. Like there are no, like you never saw any fingerling muskies in Kincaid when you were there.
No, and I mean, it's not like they didn't go through the motions. I mean, they did. I mean, they laid their eggs, and, I mean, I'd see them up spawning, and, but there was never any natural reproduction, nothing ever took.
Right, right,
So,
right. And that's
str-
important for people to understand because you get them southern boys. I mean, I saw guys bouncing muskies off the front of their boat because they didn't, they think that that fish is. It's the same thing here on this lake. I stocked him in here, and the guy was like all upset. He's like, they're going to eat everything, and I'm like, that's not what the data shows. The data shows that you actually have a more healthy fishery if you have the proper amount of muskies in the lake. It's like it weeds out all the small ones, the slow ones. You just get better fish. But he was having no part of it. He was positive that they were some sort of supernatural eating machine, and that they couldn't possibly be controlled. And when I explained to him that they don't breed, he was like, he wasn't sure that I knew what the hell I was talking about. And I'm like, well, you obviously don't know what you're talking about. So like, we're on the same footing. I don't know what to tell you, but like, he wasn't buying any of it. But I think that, and I think the data like at Kincaid showed that, right? Like that the muskies actually helped the other fish were healthier. Like the bass were better. I mean, what else
the
was on
crappie,
Kincaid?
the crappies. I mean, the state record crappie was caught out of Kincaid.
Hmm.
I mean,
Right.
that was the funny thing, is when all those locals down there were complaining about the muskies and eating all their bass and eating all the crappies, the bass fishing and the crappie fishing got better. You
Right,
know,
right.
and what people don't realize is that when a population of fish is heavily predated on, it naturally increases its reproduction. So like look at like even in the wild, look at like with deer populations. You know, when deer populations get low, what happens? They start having two or three fawns. You
Right,
know,
right.
they increase their reproduction, and the same thing happens to a population of anything. Like once it starts getting predated on, Mother Nature just naturally it kicks in, and then the reproduction increases. You know,
Right. The other
so
issue is people don't take any self responsibility because, like, I was pheasant hunting in like the Manhattan area and well, south of there, and shot some pheasants. Came up to the Manhattan area with my hunting boots on and gear and everything else, and came in to grab a beer with the guy I was hunting with, and a guy's sitting there at the bar, and he's like, "Yeah, you guys out hunting, huh? Get anything?" And I'm like, "Well, we're hunting 30 miles south of here, so yeah, we did fine." He goes, "Yeah, there's no more pheasants around here. All the damn coyotes ate them." And I looked at him and I'm like, "That's not right." And he's like, "Oh yeah." He goes, "I used to go out and shoot 16 pheasants in a day." And I go, "Well, there's your problem. You shot
yep,
16 male pheasants and you took all the males out of the population, and now there's no pheasants." He goes, "No, no, the coyotes." And I'm like, "Coyotes are like 85% mousers. They're not eating all the pheasants fly. Like, this doesn't even, what you're saying doesn't even make any logical sense, but you're blaming it on." And I go, "You just admitted to what you're the problem. Like, if you would have followed the 2 bag limit a day thing, there'd probably still be pheasants here." And then the other problem is habitat.
yeah,
Farmers have chiseled away. I mean, I remember as a kid, you'd go out there and the hedgerow would be a hedgerow. They have chiseled that thing down to, you couldn't, nothing could survive in what the couple blades of grass that are there now. So, you know, it's a man-made problem. The same thing with, if you have a day where you're not catching any bass or crappies or something like that, most likely it's on the fisherman. It's your problem. You did something wrong. um but it is crazy to think that there's fish in the high 40s running around and it's not impacting. But like you said, they naturally beef up the production because they're being eaten like that. And then it's a wolf, so you're going to get a healthier population of fish too, because anything else, they're not sharing food with the slow sick ones.
yep, yeah. I mean, it's obviously you don't want to, because of the fact that it's a stock fish and it's not natural. I mean, obviously, if you were to have too many of them in there, yeah, you could, be like, if grizzly bears reproduced like mice, I mean, it would be bad. I mean, all of a sudden you'd have way too many you could throw off the whole entire balance of the ecosystem. But
Right.
it, obviously biologists are taking into that account. They're not putting too many in there to where it's going to be detrimental to the whole entire fishery.
I don't know
So
what the data was on. Remember Webster in Indiana?
yeah,
So I know that they were like, the normal stocking was like one per surface acre of water, but they were for a bunch of years doing like, the musky clubs out there were doing like 3 or 4 per acre of water out there. And then I heard of guys, the Greg at the Fishing Connection in Orland, he was like, "Yeah, there's guys that are going out to Webster and catching 16 muskies in a day." And I was like, "What?" And he's like, "Yeah, they're going out there and boating 16 fish in a day." And I'm like, that's there's got to be something. There's got to be some other shoe that falls if there's that many muskies in a lake. And I don't think Webster's more than like 300 acres or something like that. It's not
yeah,
very big.
no,
No.
yeah,
So
that's a little extreme on the stocking.
right, right, right. And I mean, if you're the other problem is like, and I mean, honestly, we spent 8 hours at a minimum in the boat, and a majority of the talking was about muskies. I could talk about muskies, and like, there's a million different things to talk about as far as people don't think that they killed the fish, but they probably did. And then, like, if you go into how they used to fish for them just in like Wisconsin and Minnesota, where they would gut hook all kinds of fish all the time with the sucker rigs and stuff like that, and they would just let the thing swallow the damn thing. So they made sure that they caught them, and then they thought that they were releasing them, but those fish die. So like, there's so much that has to. When I stocked this 10-acre lake, I think I put 18 muskies in there altogether over 3 years. I put 18 muskies in there, figuring that my knucklehead neighbors would kill some. You know
Oh
what I mean?
yeah.
Just bass fishing. Just throwing a rattle trap or something out there for a bass, the muskie getting it, sawing them off, and then permanently sealing his mouth shut for a month before the hooks rusted out of his mouth, and then the fish ends up being dead. So like, it's a hard balance, and then like, you got a degree in fishery biology. Those guys go out there and do the netting where the fish swims up in the net and gets trapped. They do the shock tests where they pull stuff out. They used to do that stuff at Kincaid, right? Like, do the testing where they would see what was in there.
Yep. Yeah. They used to do, every year they would do spring sampling where they would shock. And, I was fortunate enough to be able to go on some of those. And then, in the spring they would do the fyke nets, because they were tagging all the fish. I don't know if you remember that. They were tagging them, and then we were able to, report the fish that we caught that were tagged.
Right.
And I think they were trying to do kind of a population estimate of how many adult, muskies were in the lake. But and then when they would also fyke net, they were stripping the eggs and taking the sperm out of the males, and I think they were taking them back to I can't remember if it was if they were doing it as, yeah, I guess it was at Southern Illinois University. They were trying to raise the muskies from the, you know, from the eggs and the sperm that they got from the fish out of Kincaid.
Okay.
I think
That was
one of the,
the spring lake, right, for muskies at
yes,
Pike. Yeah.
yep,
Okay.
yeah. Most of
Right.
the fish that get stocked in Illinois come from there, or you know, states will trade fish too. So there has been times where the fish hatcheries weren't able to produce, something happened. They weren't able to produce the amount of muskies they needed. So they would trade, if they had a surplus of catfish or trout or whatever, they would trade other states that might have had a surplus. And I know there were fish coming from Iowa. There were some fish that came from Ohio that came into, Illinois. So,
Yeah.
I mean,
Wow.
the DNRs were trading.
Yeah. Now I was told that the fish that were on the lake I like to fish at Snake Den Holler and McMaster, that those were Leech Lake strain. I don't know if that's
Yeah.
true or not. I was told that by some local bait shop guy out there that those were Leech Lake strain muskies, but I'm not positive, if that's true or
Yeah.
not.
I don't know if the DNR ever got involved in stocking Leech Lake strain muskies. I know some of, like, up in the Fox chain of lakes. I know the muskie clubs up there were buying them from a hatchery in Minnesota, a private hatchery, and then they were buying them and stocking them in the lake. Obviously, they had to get permission from the DNR to do it, but yeah. And the funny thing is, all the years of putting Leech Lake strain muskies into the Fox chain, I don't think that ever took off.
Oh no.
No, I don't know what happened. Who knows? Maybe they're all in the Fox River. Who knows? But it didn't seem like they stayed in the lake.
No, and I mean, I tell you what, I fished that Fox chain early on, maybe like a dozen times, and I think I hated it every single time I was there. There was like, you could walk across the water on the damn boats, and like, it was just, oh, it was, I don't know, the water was mucky and terrible, and there was just too many musky fishermen. It was insane, and like, that sort of a flowage sort of situation, like, just that little tiny bit of silt just ruins it as far as the breeding thing goes. Like, you would think there would be, so I always had this thing where, like, if I had my druthers, if I don't play the lottery, but if I had won the lottery, like, I was going to try and, like, I had 11 acres that I just came from when I moved here, and we were gonna put in like an 8-acre piece of water, and then I wanted to do like a river and a lagoon sort of situation where like I pumped the water up into the lagoon and then it ran down the river back into the water, right? So it's like circulating. And I'm like, could I figure out a way that I could get muskies? Like I'd rock the whole river part, you know what I mean, and everything else. Could I figure out a way that they could come up in that little river, spawn, and have their own? The problem I'd have is, I'd have thousands of muskies inside of a 8 acre piece of water, and that wouldn't work out either. But I just wanted that experiment to like work out. And I'm like, if I ever won $40 million, I'd buy myself a quarry. I'd get a hold of you because you got a fishery biology degree, and I'd hire you for a year just to biology the shit out of my damn lake. You know what I mean? So I could like make a musky fishery out of it.
Yeah.
I know. I remember talking to you, and you were like, you want to do your master's thesis on muskies, but no one was interested in hearing that paper or whatever.
No, the only thing that I got offered for grad school was to study the parasites of muskies, and I'm like, man, that I just am not too excited about going out and studying the parasites on their gills. I wanted to do tracking studies. I wanted to do, reproduction studies, and they weren't interested at the time. So that's why I became a fishing guide for a living.
Oh man, I mean, I'll tell you what. So, I got a story about that too. Like I remember, like I remember talking to you the first time we were out there, and I think like I had taken a couple of guides out um, before that, and then my other experience with guides was like up in Canada, and no offense, but those guys aren't actually guides. Those are just usually kids that don't get lost in the boat, and then they
Yeah.
around the lake. Um, they have like no idea. Now, what's weird is one of my guides from Eagle Lake, he was probably like a 22-year-old kid when he was guiding us, and I think we used him for like 4 years. Is Julian Kolka, who now owns Andy Meyer Lodge
Oh,
in
wow.
yeah, he owns Andy Meyer, and Gillespie and those guys are up there fishing for muskies out of his lodge. Um, when I booked on Eagle, I actually talked to him, but the wheelchair stuff, I don't think he could. I don't think he could accommodate me, so I went to back to North Shore Lodge. But anyways, when I was a kid, fishing was super important to me. Like I was probably all summer, my mom would bring me dinner at the local pond where I was fishing for crappies or bass or whatever, right? And I would just be entertaining myself the entire day there. And if I wasn't there in the summer, I was on the chip at my grandparents' place, staying there and fishing the entire time. I think I was the only 14-year-old kid that could be completely entertained with fishing every day. I didn't care to do anything else, except for fish. And I remember my dad saying something to me when I was like 14 or something, like, what are you going to do when you grow up? And I go, well, I'm going to do this. And he's like, what do you mean? And I go, I'm going to be a professional fisherman. I watched Jimmy Houston and, all those old fishing shows, Roland Martin and all that shit on TV. What were the Chicago brothers?
Linders.
Yeah, the Linders. Yeah, those guys were great. Like, used to watch those shows, and I'm like, that's what I'm going to do right there. And my dad's like, that's not a job. I go, what do you mean? He goes, you can't make a living. Like, there's like 5 of those people in the whole world, Bill. You can't make a living doing that. And I'm like, no. I go, I thought there was all kinds of these guys doing this shit, but like those are the ones on TV. And he's like, well, there's some competition guys and this and that. And I got in the boat with you, and I'm like, you make a living doing this. And like, yeah, you're like, I fish 280 days a year or something like that on Kincaid. And then I think, I don't know if when I first started fishing with you, if you were actually traveling yet. Because I
I
think
was
in the
probably, I think when we fished, I said I might have still been going. I was guiding in Hayward during the summers.
yeah, maybe that was it. Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
I was
Up on,
going up and staying at Pete Mayna's house, and and then I would bring some of my clients up there and fish the Hayward area, and then I was guiding for Pete as well, like when he had overflow business, and then once I got my first taste of Minnesota, that was that. That's the big leagues. That was.
I'll tell you what, I enjoyed Minnesota very much, but I don't like. So I haven't had the chance to be up north that much. Uh, just with the being paralyzed thing, it's a pain in the ass. I did. I took the boat. I bought a pontoon down by Ren Lake, and it was like a year old pontoon, real nice, easy to get around in a wheelchair. I drove it up to Namakagon for a week or 2 weeks up in Namakagon. We went to Leech Lake for a week, and I went to Vermilion for a week. So those were long hauls, in the van with the pontoon boat on the back and everything else. And I mean, once I get up to the North Woods where it's all those tall pines and everything, it looks like it's supposed to look and everything else, like my heart, man, that's where it's at. Like I feel like I'm at home. Like I'm jealous that you're living up there. Like that's awesome. Uh Minnesota, it seemed like I had to go much further north to feel like I was in the North Woods than like southern Minnesota looks like Iowa.
Yeah. Well,
Still
even
lakes, but not
yeah,
pretty.
the thing about Minnesota is, over by Leech and Mille Lacs, Bemidji, even in the well, once you get over to Grand Rapids, what it is um, it's the Laurentian Divide that comes down, that ridge, and like everything south of Laurentian Divide is kind of flatland,
Yeah.
and kind of open, big open areas. I mean, it's not as scenic or as Northwoodsy feeling, but like when you get up on the other side of the Laurentian Divide, like up in the Arrowhead section of Minnesota, the top right section up by Ely and Vermilion. I mean, holy cow, is that beautiful?
Yes,
That
it looks
that's
more
like
like
Canadian
Cornwall.
Field,
Yes,
you
yeah,
know.
right.
Uh,
People don't
that
understand the difference between that either.
what's that?
Said the difference in that too. Like there's people I know that go to Wisconsin and they're like, yeah, there's eagles, there's pine trees, rocks and water. And I'm like, yeah, but like when you get up to like Eagle Lake, it's like, I don't know, it's like it was like the land before time or something. The boulders are like 10 times bigger and the cliffs are bigger. And like it's a whole nother animal for sure. Uh, I'm so looking forward to taking my boys up. I would I would fish eagle for a full week seriously for muskie, and I would boat 3 fish, and that was a good week, like
Yeah.
really good time. I think I got a couple 47s, couple 46s, 40, like all mid 40s, nice fish. And I would be up there while there was other muskie fishermen in camp, and those places they kind of herd you through. There was like 75 people in camp. You're there for the week, and then you're out of here. Um, but I would usually be the guy who produced the most muskies during the week when I was up there. And when I was talking to the owners of the places up there, they're like, "Oh, that'd be a terrible week. That'd be, you're gonna do 4 times, 5 times that easy." He goes, "I'll be surprised if you don't have, not me, one of the boys has a 52-inch fish on at one point or another." I'm
Wow,
like,
that's awesome.
yeah, so I'm looking forward to seeing how that goes. Um, I used to do a fly-in with my father-in-law that was there's no muskies, just northern pike, and you know it's fine, but it's not the same. Like anybody who would trade fishing for northern pike, it's like the fishing for someone's cousin that's got a head injury. Like it is not the same game.
No.
Uh, no, like, and I mean, like it's hard to like I don't want to turn people onto it because it's a nightmare. It's also like you ruin your damn fishing life. If you do real well catching bass and crappies, just enjoy yourself. Don't worry about it. But like if someone has fished for smallmouth and largemouth and you catch a smallie that's a 3 pound smallie, it fights like a 7 pound largemouth bass does.
Oh yeah.
Muskies are the same, but muskies are bigger even like than
Oh yeah.
northern. So like, I mean, I've had times I was in the boat with Bill Shumway, and we had a boat that hit boat side, and it did that like laundry machine deal where it just barrel rolled and rolled. It must have rolled up 20 yards of line on its body right there. And then when it unrolled, I guess maybe it loosened up or whatever, it got away. And I was like, are you kidding me? I mean, I had the thing in its own net that it made itself. And it's like I don't know how, I mean, you got way more experience than I do. I almost felt like when I was musky fishing, I would catch a fish that you could feel the anger in that fish.
Well, they're just that fierce top of the line predator. I mean, they're like a freaking mountain lion, like a cougar. I mean, they're just. It's like they're wired differently. I mean, they're the
I almost
apex.
felt like, how dare you do this to me?
Yeah,
I'm the man or the
yeah,
woman probably, but like
yeah.
I'm the thing here I'm the thing that everything runs away with, and now you think you can do this to me. I mean,
Yeah, I mean,
I had
the thing
hot
about
fish
the
that were
thing
crazy.
about muskies is one, obviously the adrenaline. If you're an adrenaline junkie like I am, I mean, that's about as much adrenaline as you can get in freshwater fishing, right? But the
Yes.
thing about muskies too is that you got to tell people is they're the most humbling fish there is. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
just you can know everything, you can have all the gear, you can be, and they'll kick your ass just as easily as the next guy. I mean, they can be tough, really tough, and me as a guide, I mean, I was always, laying in bed at night, not even being able to sleep, thinking of new ideas, things to try. How can I catch these? They're not biting. What can I do? And just drive myself nuts. And then every once in a while, it's like there ain't a damn thing you can do.
Right.
You
Right.
They just shut off sometimes, and you can't make them bite. And it's frustrating. But yeah, they're definitely a humbling fish.
No, no, no doubt. I mean, humbling, like, I mean, I've had gear destroyed. So I think I told you my Bill Shumway story, right? Where he lost like a 52-inch fish.
I don't know if
And
I
it,
remember that.
okay, so I went up to the School of Eastocks, right? So the muskie hunter used to put on I don't know if they still do that or not, but up by Coudray, uh, they would have at Anglers Haven. You would stay at Anglers Haven, and they would have a situation where they had like 6 or 7 of the lakes around there, and they would assign you a lake to go to for the day. You take your boat, go to that lake, fish that lake, come back, you'd eat dinner, and you talk about what happened, and then they do a seminar. And they do a seminar on uh, the circle hooks or like some other technique or whatever. And then you would hear a seminar. It was kind of awesome, like learn a lot. And then every once in a while, like one of the guys would jump in your boat with you and fish with you for the day and stuff like that. It was a good time. I went up there and did that, and I did it by myself. So I was fishing by myself. And um, the next year, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to bring my dad up. My dad, super hard-headed guy, won't listen to anything I have to say. Maybe he'll listen to these people and then learn something as far as muskies went. Um, Took him up there, and we I had gone out with Shumway one day, uh, the first time. So then I got a hold of Bill again, and I was like, all right, we're gonna be back up there. Booked a day with him to fish, and he goes, we're gonna bug out of here. We're gonna go to Namakagon. So he goes, his brother Bruce was up there, and he said, they're getting big fish there. He goes, I know you're looking for big fish. Let's just go up there. So we went up to Namakagon. He goes, don't say anything to anyone else because we're not supposed to be fishing that lake. And we got there, and Namakagon looks nothing like Coudray or any of those. It's like almost looks like Canada again. It's like got bigger boulders and just a prettier piece of water. And we were having a great day. And my dad had never boated a muskie, so he's fishing, and we were casting, and we had a sucker off the back, and the sucker takes off. I look at my dad, I go, "That's you, get it." And we explained to him what he had to do. He manages to botch it completely, and he loses like a 44, 46-inch fish that we saw twice, but didn't get in the boat. So about 40 minutes later, the sucker takes off again, And my dad just grabs it. I'm like, whoa, wait, you burned the first one. I go, that's fine. I go, you haven't got one, so go ahead. And he manages to burn this one again. We fished the entire rest of the day. And I mean, I'm throwing like the biggest bulldog I got the entire day, just beating the shit out of the water. And I'm like, I can't believe that I'm not going to see another fish today. We had a 22-inch sucker off the back of the boat on a sucker rig. And Shumway goes, sorry guys. He goes, it was beautiful out. We just didn't see him. Last cast, I threw a cast right down the side of this island, and I don't know, if it's real or not, but I could feel it. There was something going on. There was a fish here. I mean, I was like, there's something gonna happen. Reeled it in, figure eight, everything, nothing. Like what the hell? And all of a sudden, tick, 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 tick. There goes the sucker. 22-inch sucker is leaving now. And I will get the rod, hit the thing in the face, and I pretty much bring this 52-inch muskie right up to the side of the boat. And I look at Shumway. He's back in the back of the boat, standing with 1 foot on he had a till drive boat, 1 foot on his seat and 1 foot on the rod holder thing on the side. And he's doing a full squat trying to yank the net out of the area in between the seat and the bulkhead on the side of the boat.
Oh.
And lures had fallen down in there with the net. They were all in the carpeting, and there was a Coleman lantern fucking all in there too. So I'm with this fish, and I had this fish on for the sucker wasn't on there anymore. This fish ran 8 times, and he's just try and calm him down, but don't because he couldn't get this net. He ripped all the carpeting off the side of his whole boat trying to get this net off of there. And he gets the lanterns all in there. He gets that out of there and everything else. And by this time, the muskie had put in big grooves in the hooks fell out. I couldn't keep them any longer. Lost the fish. So we go back. It's dark out now. Get the boat out. We get in our vehicle. He gets in his. We're driving back to Couturier to go to Anglers Haven. And he pulls up at a stop sign. He gets out and he goes, did that just happen? I think it happened. And I go, yeah, that's what happened. And I mean, I paid him. I tipped him. He did his job except for that. And he goes, well, it was nice knowing you. He goes, you're never going to talk to me again. He goes, that was too much fish. And I was like, no, it's going to be all right. And I broke my neck shortly after that. So he figured that I just never did talk to him again. The next time I went to Namakagon, I reached out and got a hold of him, and he came out with us for the day. And the girl I brought up there got a 45-inch tiger.
Nice.
So,
I miss the Shumways. Those Bill and Bruce were, I mean, those are two great guys, classics.
I'll tell you what, Fuzzy was terrific, man. He was great to talk to, and I took him out for another day on Vermilion when we were up there. And he was the full Hayward experience. I mean, he was married to a lumberjill, the whole thing, and he had all kinds of lumberjack people staying with him all the time and everything else. He was what a good guy. He had that vertical jigging. The Fuzzy does. Yeah. But terrific guy and everything else. So I mean, I took him out a couple more times because just a good guy. Now I'll tell you what, man, the guiding stuff, it's a whole nother price range now than it was. I know it's 20 years ago, but we went out with a guide on Lake Michigan, and I want to say it was $600 a day.
Recently?
Yeah, this last summer, $600 a day.
Holy cow.
Right. I mean, we were in a suite, you had a really nice boat. I don't know if you still have that same boat or not, that Ranger that you had, but the guy had a really nice, Lund and everything else. But I was like, man, I want to take my boys out for a couple of days on Lake Michigan and not haul a boat up there. Yeah, $1,200 for the 2 days to fish.
Wow. Yeah, I know even when I got out, I mean, what was that? That was, I mean, my last year of guiding was in 2013. There were some other guys that were starting to guide up there, and yeah, even they were like starting to really raise rates and get up higher, and I was like, I mean, I had so much of my business was repeat, you know, what I mean, like the majority of my business was repeat customers, and it was like I couldn't justify doing that, you know. So I mean, I was still probably one of the cheaper guides, even in, you know, at the peak of my guiding. I couldn't justify. Some guys were like, well, if it's a full moon period, it's $500 a day.
Woo!
You know, I'm like, what? You know, so because the full moon periods were obviously higher demand, you know, or you know, it's like I don't know. I just
So, I know me and you talked about that stuff before, and I know you did pay attention to it. But I mean, should somebody, if they're gonna go musky fishing, should they really book their trip around the full moon period, or like pay attention to moon patterns?
well, the thing is you know, again, I'm a biology nerd. You know, I mean, I love to do my own experiments and study and do that. So I had this great opportunity to do all my studying while I was guiding, you know, and observe all this stuff. And you know, the thing with the moon is it is a huge deal. It
Yeah,
really is. And
good.
and moon rises and moon sets and the major, you know, when the moon is at the highest peak, the zenith. You know, I saw so many times where the fishing would be incredible right around those times. So I would plan my guide trips, you know, according to trying to be out there for a moonrise, even if it was at 2 in the morning, you know, or you know, I was always scheduling my trips around the moon. But the bottom line is weather trumps everything.
Right, right.
So, you know, if you're in a stable weather pattern, you can count on that moon stuff almost pr- with precision. It's crazy. I mean, I'm already experiencing this with my nighttime walleye fishing up here at this ice fishing season. You know, like you know, the other night I was out and you know I was out by myself and I had a few tip ups out and you know it got dark at like 4:30 or you know 5. It was pitch dark and I didn't have any action for the first 2 hours after dark. But I looked on my phone and I saw the moon thing and it was like you know, I think it was a moon set or something was at 7 something. And, you know, so there was going to be a peak activity, you know, from 7 till 8 o'clock. So again, no action at dark, which is the typical time, you know, you kind of catch walleyes right at first dark, no action. And then at 7 o'clock, like a freaking alarm clock went off. I had like 7 flags and caught 4 walleyes in like an hour,
Wow,
you know,
wow.
same thing right around the moon, you know, so I still pay attention to it. You know, I every day I go fishing, I look at that stuff and plan accordingly. But barometer changes, you know, fronts, weather
Yeah,
is
sure, sure.
we'll throw all that out the window.
Right now, so like most of my musky fishing, like I tried to pay attention to what we were doing when I was trolling with you. And one of my friends is a super troller, man. They're doing some, and I'll ask you if you know what he's talking about. He's supposed to explain it to me, but he's got some sort of camera system right now that they are fishing open water. They're finding muskies in open water and then casting at the muskies, um, just out in the middle of Vermilion. That's where they're fishing at. Uh, but most of my musky fishing was done casting. Most of it was looking for cabbage beds, looking for rock structures, reefs, and stuff like that, and casting those structures. Like Eagle is like most Canadian lakes. You'll be in 50 feet of water, and then all of a sudden there's a huge rock reef that's in 3 inches of water out in the
Yeah.
middle of which is a lower unit killer, but it's it's a terrific place to find big fish and stuff like that. Uh, so for me, the way to do my system was I would go out and cast all the spots that I wanted to cast, and then if I saw fish on those spots, I would do like a run through the spots at dusk. You know what I mean? Like that was, I was never really paying attention to the moon that much, but dusk was a big thing for me, right? I would do a milk run, I would call it, at that time. We saw 3 fish today. Let's hit all 3 of those spots right at dusk and see if we can't get something to go. Um, but if I was playing it right, I should pay attention to the moon phase and then hit those spots then.
Yeah, I mean, like a perfect example would be, one time when I was guiding in Minnesota on Leech Lake, um, there was the moon. I can't remember if it was moonset or moonrise, but it was at like 1 in the morning. And so I told my clients we're going to plan on, doing an all nighter. So we went out in the evening, and there was, for some reason, there was like no bite at dusk, or even at like first dark. There really wasn't much happening. So we went out and we scouted spots, and we ran through all these spots. The nice thing about muskies is they'll follow, so at least they'll give up their location. So we ran through a bunch of my favorite reefs and stuff and rock bars. And on one particular rock bar, we raised 3 giant fish. None of them, they're all lazy. This is in the evening too, like right before, I think the sun was almost about down, but they weren't aggressive yet.
Right.
So then, it got dark, and then there still wasn't much action going on. And, I was always pretty honest with clients. I'm like, hey, there's probably not going to be a lot going on, for a while, but, so, don't beat yourself up right now, but, when it gets to be close to 1 in the morning, it's going to be game time. And they're always looking at me like, what? How do you know that? I'm like, well, I just have a real good feeling. Let's say that. Right. So it got to be, I remember we even took a break, we sat down at like, 11:30 or midnight and had a snack and just took a break. And then as it got close to 1, I said, all right, guys, it's time. Let's go back to that reef where we saw those 3 big ones and see what happens. And Bill, in a matter of 7 casts, we caught a 49, a 50 and a half, and a 53 and a half. We caught all 3 of those big fish at 1 in the morning, like it was clockwork.
Yeah. Wow.
So it's those little things that you learn to pay attention to. And again, if you have stable weather and you're not getting these huge fluctuations in the barometer, that's when that moon stuff is I swore by it. And I was out on the water, as much as anybody in the world. And
Some of that happens in the daytime too, though, right? Like, I mean, you get certain
yep.
times of the month where the moon rises at 10 a.m. or something like that.
Yeah, I
And
mean that thing constantly is changing, it's always moving. So again, I mean, it's just always, pay attention to that stuff. I have an app on my phone, so every time I'm going fishing, I'm paying attention to it. So I know that, like you said, you looked at dusk as a prime window, which it normally is, but so you'd see these fish during the day and you knew to be on there at dusk. Well, there's also times where, there might be a crazy, short half an hour feeding window that happens at, noon or 1 o'clock in the afternoon. So, again, use those as times to go back on fish if you've seen them,
right,
or if a spot has fish, make sure you're on it at a prime time.
right. That's so I'd have people that would see, I got a photo book, and I mean, for me, my musky fishing, time that I did it in my life was pretty short. I probably had like 6 years that I was musky fishing because I got injured. Like it was over. Like that was it. And people are always like, that don't know anything about fishing. They're like, why don't you just try and do it? And I'm like, you just don't understand. Like, I don't have any torso control. Like, and I mean, I was like, you had to fish with some people that were all different skill levels. I was pretty serious about what I was doing. Like I don't think that, what I mean, maybe I'm wrong. And be honest with me, I don't think there was a time where you were in the boat and you're like, this fucking guy, like, he don't know what the fuck he's doing. Like, he can't cast. Like, I had been fishing since I was a kid, and having the right gear, having the St. Croix rods, the, Calcutta reel, everything that I, was going to have, I was going to have, and I was going to do everything to the best of my ability. But having time was the other factor. Like I didn't have, um, like some of my musky fishing was done in Canada, and there is no, hey, we're going to come out at night. Like that doesn't go on. You fish during the day hours that you fish, and then that's it. Like you're not free to just like go, do that kind of stuff. But like the musky fishing, if you have they would see the photo and be like, oh, like you got lucky. And I'm like, I don't know. Could it be luck? Because I don't think it is. Like I go to Canada with three other guys and I catch three muskies during the week. They all musky fish. They didn't catch any. Like that's how it goes every single time I go up there. And then I know plenty of people that I put in the boat, and I'd put them in the boat where I had a till drive boat. You're in the front of the boat. I'm in the back of the boat. I'd still outfish the guy I was, out catch the guy that I was fishing with. And sometimes I'd be shaking my head going, the guy's got a muskie behind his bait. He doesn't seem to see it. I don't know how he doesn't see this big fucking fish, but he's just fishing like I don't know. Muskie fishing is a test in mental focus because
Yep.
you're gonna have like one or two connections during the day, and if you're talking about poon and you can't do two things at once, well, you're fucked. You're not going to catch that fish because you're paying attention to something else.
Yep.
So like, I mean, me and you could talk about women or going outs or whatever we want and still catch fish, but some guys can't. I think I enjoyed musky fishing because it was such an exercise in mental focus that if you had a career or a job that took a lot of your mental bandwidth, you could take a real mental break for the day and just focus on muskies. Like it was such a break. I would come back to work the next day refreshed, even though I probably worked just as hard in the boat as I did on the job.
Yeah, if not more.
Yes, right, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I would go to that Canada trip. I was on my way up to that trip for the first time, and my father-in-law was like, "Hey, there's no muskies, but there's northern." And I'm like, "Listen, man, if there's trees and water and a boat and fish, that I'm gonna be fine. I'm just going up there to spend some time with my father-in-law, that kind of thing, and fish." He goes, "Well, we took a musky fisherman up here a couple years ago. He caught 5 fish over 36 inches." I'm like, sounds good to me. That if a whole week goes by and I catch 5 fish over 36 inches, I'm gonna be thrilled. We got up there the first day. We started fishing at like just before noon, and we quit at 6 o'clock in the evening. And I had 5 fish over 36 inches that day. By the end of the week, I had 28 fish over 36 inches and one that was 43 and 3/4. So I killed it, right? At the end of the week, my father-in-law at the time was like, "You're just showing off. You're kind of a dick." Like, oh. And I'm like, I had like cuts. I was putting super glue all over my hands from the amount of fish I was handling because I was constantly yanking the baits away from hammer handles, 22-inch muskies and or northern and stuff. Um, Even though there was that much action, I would trade that week for a week where I could have a chance of catching a 54-inch fish. You know what I mean? Like a muskie. I would trade it for a week on eagle anytime. And people that don't musky fish don't understand that. They're like, you caught like 50 fish and a bunch of them that were huge. Why weren't you happy? It's like dating all of the ugly girls. It's not hard. This is not a difficult thing to do. Like this is, you don't even on those fly-ins. Like I was up there and I'm like, you don't even got to be a fisherman. You could take the remote to your TV, put a treble hook on it, throw it out there, and you will catch something. Something will bite that thing because it doesn't see anything. You know what I mean? We had 6 lakes to ourselves. With if you saw another boat, they were with you.
Wow. I know what you're saying. I know what you're saying though, because for me, I think one of the reasons why I've been able to get away from the musky fishing now and enjoy the big bluegill fishing and the big crappie fishing and the walleyes, and I think the reason I enjoy it now is because I've already done all that. I feel like,
Yeah, yeah, I can see it.
like I got that kind of out of my system. Like I was obsessed with, with big buck hunting, and then I shot half a dozen big bucks. And then my last one I shot was my biggest one, a big 13 pointer. And after I shot, I always, always bow hunting. I never shot one with a gun, but it was, with a bow, and I didn't shake after I shot it. Like normally after I'd shoot a big buck, I'd have to sit down in my tree stand. I'd be the adrenaline. I mean, my knees would be bouncing up and down. I was afraid I was going to fall out of my tree. I was, shaking so much. And then I shot that 13 pointer. I watched it run about 50, 75 yards and tip over, and I didn't shake. And I've never deer hunted again after that.
Oh
It was
my God.
like, it was done, so like with the muskies, I mean, I've caught, thousands of muskies. I've caught, a ton of them, a ton of big ones. It's like I did it. It's like, so now I'm on to something new, and I'm getting just as much excitement now, doing these nighttime walleye trips and catching these 9, 10, 11-inch bluegills. And it's like people look at me like I've lost my mind. Everyone's like, "You're bluegill fishing now?" Like, what?
Yeah, I'll tell you what, that's kind of hard for me to wrap my brain around because the Chad I knew, it was muskies like 24/7. I remember being on Leech Lake and like we were bunked together in the same room and we were still talking about muskies at like 10:30 at night when we were supposed to be sleeping. Like,
Yeah.
you were definitely intense as far as the muskie thing went. Um, it is. I mean, when you got your kids though, I could totally see that. Like that's something that it's kind of something that my boys were sort of robbed of. Like we didn't have that much time to fish for. They went bass fishing and all that other stuff, but like you know, normally if you have little kids, you're not going to take a 5-year-old out musky fishing. You're going to take them out, bluegill fishing and stuff like that, just to get them, hooked up on fishing for fish like that. As far as
Yeah.
that goes. And I mean, I took my kids out for some of that, but not like I would have if I had the boat. I mean, I didn't have a boat for years. I didn't get a boat till the kids got bigger. But and I sold the boat when I moved here. But so that it is kind of strange to hear you say that, and honestly, walleyes, oh man, that's like my least favorite fish to fish for. It's for me, it's like they don't fight. They're like it's like catching a stick half the time.
Yeah. You know what I like about them? Eating them.
Yes. No, it's 100%. You're 100% right. And I think I used to always get a little bit irked when someone would see a picture of me with a 46-inch muskie and they're like, tell me about the fight. And I'm like, yeah, no, I was a big, strong guy and using the right gear. My complete focus when I caught that fish was getting it into the net as fast as I could, unhooked, and then getting the camera out to take the picture and then getting it back in the water. I wasn't like savoring the battle with the fish. You know what I mean? Like I was literally horsing him in so that I could not use his energy. Like when we killed that fish, man, I think it scarred me. Like I was like, man, I'm never going to kill. I absolutely avoided ever fishing in 95-degree weather again.
Yeah. I mean, I remember that was, what was that, very end of May or beginning of June
Yep.
when we did
Yep.
that? And that
Yep.
was, I would always quit right around the middle of June,
Right.
once that water hit 80. So, I mean, we were in that time zone where it was getting close to the end. And, yeah, I mean, you know how it is. I mean, everything was catch and release, and not only just catch and release, but doing it the right way,
That,
cutting
that,
hooks and
yeah,
measuring
that's
them
a
in the
cool.
water,
Yep.
keeping them in the net, in the water. I mean, we did everything we could to release that fish. And that was hard on me too. That was, I in all the years of guiding, I think I had about maybe maybe 6 fish that died on us, and it was tough every time, and when I'd have one die on Kincaid, and if the client didn't want to keep it, say it was like a 40-incher or a 44-incher that had inhaled the bait and had it down in its gills and it was bleeding to death. And I was able to give it to the fisheries biologist, even, even though it wasn't a legal fish. I mean, I
Yeah.
was able, with the biology connection, I would take it and say, here, age it, do something with it,
Yeah.
make some use instead of just feeding the turtles with it.
Right. Right.
So
Right.
that was kind of nice. I was able to bring any fish that died but yeah, I mean, that's one of the things, when you play with big hooks, bad things can happen.
Oh yeah. You told me the story, but tell it. You had the one time where you had the fish and the trouble go through two fingers and the
Yeah,
fish was
yep. Yeah, I had a fish thrash, and the one of those big 5/0 trebles went through two fingers. So I had two fingers like stapled together, and it's still thrashing around. So I mean, I had to like, cut the hook. Then I had to cut it, back it out through the fingers to get them separated. I mean, it was, yeah, I got hooked up. I got hooked up quite a few times, and even as you try to be safe, but you know how fast that stuff can happen. I mean, holy cow, they start thrashing their head, and all hell breaks loose.
now ever hooked on a cast from a client?
No, no, in all the years of guiding, and the only time I ever had anything bad happen like that was a husband and wife out with me one time on Kincaid, and the wife was in the bow, he was in the middle, and all of a sudden he just had a brain fart and he did a sidearm cast and he buried the trebles of a bucktail into the back of his wife's head.
Oh,
I mean,
damn.
buried him. There was no cutting him, and it was like, oh my god, we had to go to the emergency room. I
Yeah.
mean, we had to like
Oh,
surgically remove this big treble from the back of her head. Yeah, that was bad.
yeah, that sounds fucking awful. Uh, so when I was talking to the owners up at Eagle, I was surprised to find out that the damn limit's 54 inches now.
Nice.
Now, I mean, like people don't understand what like so it's I, there was a golden age back in the Louis spray time and everything else. And the reason that that was like that was because things were hard to get to and the equipment was shit.
Yep.
Those guys caught, from what I understand of the books I read, those guys caught all those fish like row trolling, right? They would put two rods in the back of a rowboat, cinder blocks on top of them, and then row across the lake and catch these big fish. And it was kind of smart because it creates that action where it's like, faster, slower, all that kind of thing. And they would catch these big fish, but there's no fishing pressure up there then. There's no, you know, I think my dad would talk about when they would go to Minocqua when he was a kid, it was like gravel roads to get up there and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like there was no access. Now you've got all the access in the world. Guys have all these fancy, you know, cameras and sonars and GPS and everything else. Like, I mean, you know, that was something that would take away from a guide, right? You go with a guide, he takes you to 15 spots and you mark them all on a GPS. Then you got somebody fishing your spots the next day, right?
Yeah. I used to not let people bring handheld GPSs in my boat. I was just like, I just felt like that was kind of crossing the line, a little bit. I
Yeah.
wasn't afraid to take people to my, the spots because I wanted people to catch fish, but I was just like, I mean, come on, dude, don't sit here and freaking. They would map my trails, like so, because obviously boat control and boat positioning is so important when it comes to fishing spots. So I mean, yeah, I mean, the technology kind of, yeah, it's like you kind of have mixed emotions on it. I mean, it's nice because it simplifies it a little bit, but like I know what they're doing at Vermilion now, and I don't like that. It's like some
Oh,
of these
so
guys have like 8 or 10 cameras on their boat, and they're
yeah.
this was it like Panoptics or whatever it's called, and
Yes. Right. Right. Right.
they're even able to judge the size of the fish from the cameras, and then if they see a big one, they'll sit there and cast at the thing all day long until it finally bites. It's like, man, I don't know that I would I don't know that I would like that, but we're old school, right?
Yeah,
Older school.
yeah, but I mean, that's not even like it's almost if you think of the way those guys had to do it, 60 years ago versus the equipment that you have now, it's completely unfair. Taking it to that next level where what they were doing, I was like really surprised. I'm like, I said to the guy that when he explained what he was doing, I said, when are they going to outlaw that? He's like, what do you mean? And I go, well, like in Wisconsin, they figured that it was an unfair advantage that you could troll, so they outlawed trolling on a bunch of lakes. It sounds like what you're doing, and like he was sending me the pictures. It's productive. They are catching fish that way for
Oh,
sure.
yeah.
They look like the pros of pros, but I don't know. I always felt like I always discounted like even the muskie that I caught with you when we were trolling, I kind of discounted that as not that we didn't boat the fish and that's great and everything else, but like I was in the boat that day with you and my wife. She got the first fish, which was like a 38-inch fish, and then I got the second one, which was that the 4 foot freaking fish. If it just would have gone the other way, she would have been somebody with the bit. You know what I mean? Like I didn't do anything skill wise to make that happen.
Yeah.
Um, so now on the other hand, you did do something skill wise to make that happen, and I learned that after years and years of trying to like just out of nowhere manufacture my own trolling passes, which sucked. Like it was, I would troll for hours and hours and nothing would fucking happen. Um, so like there's an art to trolling that you're looking for certain things when you're doing what you're doing. You're looking for a certain depth, inside turns, whatever you're looking for. So there's a skill to that. I think when the times that I kind of did figure it out a little bit, I took my dad down to Kincaid. He got his first muskie fishing with you, and then I believe the next day I think he got a 46 fishing with you and a 45 trolling with me. And when you're trolling and you're driving the boat, you feel a little bit more responsible for the fish that's caught.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and I mean, trolling season down there, was really only after about the second, third week of May. It was like I'd get a few weeks of trolling because what happened is after the shad got done spawning, excuse me, and the water started to, warm up some. I mean, the shad left the shallows. They left, they went out and suspended out in that basin, or
Yeah.
and so you know, it was like really the only way I could put fish in the boat was to troll. I mean, you could sit there and, some people are like, I don't want to troll. I'm like, okay, but we might not see a fish today,
Right.
and
Right.
they're like, well, I don't care. I don't want to troll. I'm like, okay, I understand that, I wasn't as big of a fan of trolling either. I like to cast, but then after a while, it's like, once I got good at trolling and was utilizing the fact that these were suspended fish too, and started using planer boards and, then I started getting pretty good at it. And then I started catching a lot of fish. It was like, holy cow, then it was, but, and then what I would also do was it was a great opportunity for me to then, when I'd be at the fishing shows and I'd have a guy and his young kid come up, or an elderly couple, or a disabled person or something like that, and be like, hey, this is come down when we're trolling. This will be a perfect opportunity for you to have an experience of catching a muskie and seeing one up close. And, so trolling was nice because then I was able to kind of fill that time frame with people that were more geared for trolling, and then when you get the guys like me and you that are, kind of more a little ADD, kind of have to keep moving, keep casting, keep going, then it was, then there are other times a year for that as well. So trolling was just like definitely not my favorite way to do it, but it was a nice thing to do, as well, basically.
Now you were doing a thing that I saw with what was it? Like vets. It wasn't Wounded Warrior, but you were doing
Operation
something.
Muskie.
Yes, yes, yes. So what was that? What was going on there?
Um, we were taking vets from Iraq and Afghanistan, up to Lake of the Woods, and there was 10 of us guides, and then there would be 20 vets. And then for, 5 days of fishing on Lake of the Woods at Bay Store Lodge up on Lake of the Woods. And it was one of the coolest experiences ever. I mean, these guys were, and there were some, some girls too. And that was just a great way to give back to those people. And, some of them were dealing with post-war issues and PTSD, and it was just a great opportunity for them to get out in the boat, kind of unwind, be with other vets, do something we all love to do, go fishing. And we had did we have a good time. We caught a lot of big fish, and met a lot of great people. I'm still friends with a lot of them. Still
Yeah.
keep in touch with them.
I'll tell you, I think that people, not to use a pun, but miss the boat on, like, they get too caught up on, you want to produce fish, no doubt. That makes for a better day. But if you can spend, we used to do that fly in, and there'd be like 6 or 8 of us that would go, and there's one cabin on 6 lakes. And then every day you'd spend with a different guy in the boat. And, some guys are better in the boat than other guys. But if you're in the boat with a guy that you can really have a conversation with, man, that day can go by fast, and you can have some belly laughs. And I mean, I'm a talker, right? Like, I mean, I do this podcast because I enjoy having a good conversation with someone. I enjoy, I was having them here where we were sitting across the table, and, if a guy smoked weed, that's fine, do that. If you drink whiskey, that's fine, let's do that. However it goes, but, like, have a conversation about something about, or something that you've done, or something like that. And I don't know, I leave most of those conversations like, I don't know, invigorated or happy that I had the human contact of the conversation and everything else. Like, I mean, I remember some of the conversations. Some of them are not, okay for prime time, but the conversations that we had in the boat and stuff like that, like, it's a great time to, like, I was going to Canada with a guy that I went to high school with for years, knew him pretty well. Like, he was a year older than me, a gym leader, talked to him, all that kind of stuff. We were from same area, until I spent 8 hours a day in a boat with the guy. Man, you get to know somebody. Like,
Yep.
people start to talk about things that, this guy, he lost his wife. She got addicted to opioids and everything else. And, like, he got into it, man. Like, there was, like, I learned a ton from him as to what had happened and everything else. I, knew very well. I never even met his kids, but I knew him very well from spending time with them in the boat and everything else. So, like, it was, there's a certain camaraderie that goes on there. I mean, you can be male, female, however it works, but the time spent in the boat, man, I wouldn't trade it. And I mean, if you have kids, it can be tough. I remember taking my daughter out, and, having to take the phone away from her and stuff like that, because you're not doing this. Like, you gotta spend time in this, like, put that stuff away. Yeah, I don't know. I couldn't suggest a better thing that a parent could do with their kids than spend the day fishing, that kind of thing. You don't catch any fish. Hell, I fished with my dad a ton. He was terrible at it. We never caught anything when I was a kid. But so yeah, I mean, when we were at Leech, I took the friend of mine, John, up there, and it just so happened that when we were on that trip, he was like, "Hey, the roofer that I got, it's not working out. The roofs keep leaking, all this other stuff." He goes, "I know you do roofing. I don't. Can you, roof the houses that I'm building?" And we were on one of his jobs when I broke my neck.
Wow.
So that put a big stress on the relationship, and we don't talk anymore because I was subbing that day. So, like, it affected his insurance and everything else. But, what can you do? But, I strongly suggest that if someone's got kids, that you get them out on the boat. And I strongly suggest that they look for a guide. Do you think that once your kids are grown, you'd go back?
In some small fashion, yes. Yeah, I do. Um, I live in northern Wisconsin right now. I would not be interested in guiding in this area. Um, so when my kids grow up and move on and go off to college and start their own lives, I'm probably going to leave that day as well and get out of here. I don't fit in real well up here for some reason. I don't know what it is.
Shut
Like
up.
I
Well,
don't.
explain that. That's
I don't
interesting.
know
What
if
do
it's
you?
I like it's some of it's a little personal. I think some of it has to do with my ex-wife and
Sure.
like there's hate to say it, but there's not a lot of real attractive women up here, and she's a beautiful woman, and everybody knows her. And then of course I'm the ex-husband, and it's weird. It's like people don't like me before they even get to meet me, which is strange. It's just maybe that's just my perception, but I've never lived in a place where I didn't feel comfortable, and
Yeah.
it's
I mean, I'll tell
strange.
you what, dude, you were a rock star. You knew every freaking waitress at the barbecue joint. Like, I think we ran across 15 people a day on the water that knew you were out there and stuff like that. Hell, you even got along with who was the old guide that was guiding Muskies before you at Kincaid?
El Nutty.
Nutty, yeah, Nutty,
Yep.
right. I mean, you were taking business probably from him and you guys still got along.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's just, I'm like, like I said, it's a weird thing living here. Um, and plus, since I spent so much time in northern Minnesota, I just feel like the people over there are much more friendly. Um, people up here hate people from Illinois. It's weird.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But I mean, you've been up there so long now. Are you really from Illinois like that?
Well, I mean, it's
Are you
it's
fucking a
maybe
bear?
that. Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely a Bears fan. But yeah, it's strange. I don't feel comfortable here. I have a couple friends. I really don't even have that many friends, and I like people, so it's strange for me, but I don't have very many friends. So I just spend all my time with my girls. And then when I don't have my girls, I'm fishing, and, I don't go to the bars. I don't drink alcohol anymore. So I gave that up. So it's like, what do you do around here? It's like,
Yeah. I mean, that was a hard. I remember we had some talks about like how like it wasn't really about you. It was about like I think Pete and stuff like that. Like that the guiding lifestyle is not conducive to the family lifestyle as far as that goes. Like I mean, and it is. Yeah, you always dated some attractive women, and like taking them up there is a bad idea. Like, I mean, you're taking a steak to people who haven't seen meat in a while. That's a rough situation. Uh, but like that lifestyle is like I was talking with the guy we were on Lake Michigan with, and I'm like, he's a young guy. He was in his 20s, and he was getting married. I think coming up, and I'm like, what are you gonna do after that? And he goes, what do you mean? And I go, you gonna keep guiding? And he goes, well, yeah. And I'm like, I don't know, man. I go, you better see how that works out, because like you're there's such a weird dynamic with a guide. And I always try to like make sure when I talk to you that I didn't. There's like a weird line. Like we were close to the same age. We got along. I think every time we went out, we're guiding with guided me. We went out to dinner afterwards. We went drinking. You stayed with us the one time at Leech. I enjoyed your company as a person, but I was always like, this guy's working and stuff like that. I don't want to monopolize his time. I don't know what his social life is outside of this thing, that he's doing. But like, I suspect a lot of your clients expected you to go out for beers all the time.
well, the funny thing is I usually did. I mean, I love I loved to party. Let's just say that, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I mean, I mean, for a while there was it was almost like a rock star lifestyle. I mean, it was just like, work your ass off during the day, have fun, fish, and then party hard at night, and when you're in your 20s, you can do that shit. I mean,
Well, that was the last time I was out with you. And I mean, we were fishing all day on leech and then going to the bar to shoot pool. And I don't think we were getting back until like past midnight and then getting back up in the morning to go fishing again.
Yeah.
Like, and I don't know, like I was around some people. My best buddies were these, couple Irish dudes that were drinkers and fighters and all this other stuff. And they had drinking problems. Like it was like, you know, serious drinking problems. I seriously never looked at you as somebody who had a drinking problem. I thought you had a lifestyle problem where it was like, damn, this is this guy's life. I mean, your liver was pickled not because you were, I never saw you drunk, but man, you had 8 or 9 beers every night. Like it was,
Yeah. It
it's
was
a
just a
lot.
big it was just a big party all the time. I mean, it was not like, it's not like, like the typical alcoholic or maybe whatever the stereotypical alcoholic is running from problems, he's drinking he's depressed, he's drinking just to get away from life. I was freaking partying, just loving it. I mean, like it was fun. I
Oh,
mean, some of the
we laughed our asses off when we were out
yeah.
and shit. Like it was a blast. Um, I'll tell you what, man. I remember being pretty impressed with you as far as like I went to fish with you, and then I caught a couple of your talks at the, I think one at the Musky show, and then did you do one at the regular sporting show once or a couple
Yeah.
times?
Yep.
Okay, and I mean you were like, the crowd laughed. You were good at it, man. I mean there was no doubt about it. Like the talks you gave were good, and yeah, you had like you were like it's impressive when you hear somebody like Mike Tyson is a great fighter, but he also was like super stoked in the history of it all. Like, you knew all the Linders and all that, like it was, you're saying it was a rock and roll lifestyle, but it was, you were fully embedded in it as far as it went. You know what I mean? Like, there's got to be a camaraderie. I remember fishing with Shumway the first time and telling him that I had been fishing with you. And he's like, oh, yeah, yeah. We were talking about some time where you guys were at one of the shows and got like completely fucked up. And like he was, he was just having a good time and everything else. That's why it's like mind blowing that you left that. Like, like it's like, oh my God, holy cow. I hope your daughters realize the sacrifice. And like I said, mind blowing that you left it, but from my position, totally the right choice. I mean, I was forced into it. Like I broke my neck, so I was taken out of my lifestyle. Um, I don't know if I would have made that choice.
Yeah, you never know. I mean, it's things kind of happen in mysterious ways sometimes.
Right? I think I would have pulled the bullshit that my dad pulled and been like, I know I'm not spending the time with them that I should, but I'm putting a roof over their head and blah blah, all that other bullshit. And it's bullshit. Like I was making money because I enjoyed making money. It wasn't like they had everything that they could have wanted. The time that the things that I've taught my sons are, oh my God, so rewarding. It's crazy. I mean, just to just to spend a weekend or a week teaching my sons a wrestling move and then see them use it when they were like 8 years old. Oh my God, I'm over the moon happy that they had that thing. Um, and then the carpentry stuff and everything else. My sons will be engineers. They'll probably never pick up a hammer again when they're, in their 30s, but they know how to. If they're on a
Yeah.
job, they're telling a tradesman that this, and this, and the tradesman is some smart ass, oh, you don't know shit, college boy or something like that. They're like, well, I wore that tool belt for 10 years. I know exactly what you're doing.
Yep.
So, yeah, I mean, I can't, you know, I miss my life before the injury, but there's no way the wrestling stuff has taken, oh my God, I spent 8 hours a day on Sundays in a gym for a wrestling tournament and then 4 nights a week coaching and all that other stuff, I wouldn't have done any of that. Wrestling's hard, man. You There's all kinds of times where I think if they never had it happen because they won a lot, but I think if I wasn't there, they would have decided to quit at some point.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. I mean,
so
like you said, you wonder if my daughters realized, what transpired, how I gave that up basically for them, and they probably won't even see that till they're older. How it is with kids. They don't.
yep, yep, no doubt,
You never
no
really
doubt.
learn to appreciate. You never really learn to appreciate things until later, which is weird.
Right, right, right. No, it's something. I mean, I've had moments with my daughter and stuff like that where she was like, you know, it'll be weird when the boys are old enough, like they're out of high school and into college, and you're just done with the coaching thing, and you got all this time in your hands. I'm like, yeah, that'll be strange when I'm done with wrestling. And she's like, well, when I have kids, you'll go back to coaching, right? Because you'll coach them. And I'm like, I looked at her, and she's like, 15, and I'm like, that's something you're thinking about? And she's like, well, yeah, I see that it's, important that they get what they get from the sport and everything else. And I'd want my sons or, daughters to wrestle. And I'm like, I'm there. I'll coach 100% for sure. I don't care if I'm, 70 years old and busting around in a wheelchair. I'll do what I can. Um,
Nice.
for me, I enjoyed going out and drinking and stuff when we were fishing. My lifestyle with construction, we definitely sent a guy out, Friday night to go get a case of beer, and we'd drink on the job, after the job was over for the day, a Friday or Saturday night. But like, it's not a big part of my life now. Um, I'll have a drink or two. I'd like a drink of whiskey here and there. But like I said, for you, man, now you don't drink at all.
No.
None. Okay.
No.
So I quit chewing before I was in the boat with you, and you chewed, and I started chewing again, because I was listening with you, right? How do you think that's going to work out for you uh, if you go back to guiding in a way? Do you think
You
that
know
it'd
the
be hard to drink?
the funny thing is, because of the amount of drinking that I did, um, I mean, even after I moved up here and I was no longer guiding, I was kind of just into that routine. I never got drunk because I mean, hangovers are the worst thing in the world. But I was still into that routine of every night coming home from work and having, 3 to 5, IPAs, big beers,
Yeah.
and it was just it was a habit, but I also enjoyed it. I loved the taste of them. I was like, and it finally got to where my body said no more. Like I couldn't physically do it anymore. Like it was making me ill. Like I was having, I was getting to where I was having horrible, horrible hangovers from like 3 beers. I was like, what the hell is going on? Like I've been partying my whole life. This has never been an issue. And I don't know if I mean, it's kind of a blessing in disguise, maybe, because maybe that was my liver telling me, dude, I can't take it anymore.
I'll tell you what, man, booze is so like weed is legal now in Illinois, and I'm not a smoker, but if someone said, hey, you're either going to smoke or drink, I think I'd smoke over drinking just because the alcohol is poison, man. That stuff is just bad for your body. Um, I have smoked on occasion, and I was always amazed at how pretty fucking I don't have any tolerance. I don't smoke, but I get pretty damn stoned sitting here, having dinner with some people, and they'd have a vape pen or something like that, and I'm like, I'm gonna pay for this tomorrow. I'd wake up and be like, I was completely lit last night, and I'm fine. I don't even think I felt like I did anything to myself. Now, Wisconsin, everything's still totally illegal up there as far as that goes,
Yeah.
which is that's a strange thing. It's strange that something that you can just have a bag of weed. Like I don't smoke, but like a bag of weed, get pulled over by a cop, and there's no big deal unless you're stoned. But if you drive across the border to Wisconsin, you're going to go to jail.
Same thing with Indiana, you know?
Right, right, right. I don't go to Indiana. Too many hillbillies.
Yeah.
I'm a quarter hillbilly on my mom's side. I try to avoid those people. But um, So I don't know, like, do you think that'd be a tough thing for you to do if you went back to guiding? Do you drink any like near beer or anything like that? Because they got some pretty damn good ones out there now.
No, that another crazy thing is that I started having some just some health issues, and I started doing a lot of researching and reading a lot of like functional medicine books, and got really into that, and so I determined there's this thing called an elimination diet, to where
Yep.
you can find out what is causing the problems in your diet,
Yep.
that's that. And so I did a 30-day elimination of gluten. Okay. And then you reintroduce it, and then you'll be able to really see what it does to you. And
Sure.
holy crap, dude, it was gluten. Like I had
That's
a lot
beer.
of digestive issues. I had stomach problems. I had going to the bathroom problems. I had sinus problems. I had, it was just like all these weird things that were starting to come on. So I eliminated the gluten for 30 days, and all of those things went away. All of
Wow.
them.
Wow.
And then I remember I ate like a pizza the next, I was like, okay, I went 30 days. I'm gonna reintroduce gluten, ate pizza, and the next day I couldn't breathe through my nose. My head was pounding, like my guts were hurting. I had diarrhea. I'm like, holy crap. So now I'm gluten free, and
Right.
I am the healthiest I've ever been. It's crazy, and
So do you do anything like um I had a I've had all kinds of like I had marathon runners, Ironman runners on the podcast. I had I got a friend of mine that I grew up with who is like seriously one of the best yogis, yoga guys, in the Chicago area. Um and he was on the podcast. We went to a yoga for grapplers. I took my boys there, and they dug it. They thought it was awesome, and it was all like, things to work on, things that like your body gets beat up after years of grappling. So it stretches for that kind of stuff. When I was watching these people do yoga, I was already paralyzed, but I'm like, man, I think everybody over 40 should do a yoga class. Like it was amazing to watch these people like work on balance. When you get to be over 40, you stop getting into weird positions and stuff. And pretty much yoga was that sort of thing. Like you got to get into weird positions and balance. What's it like up there? What's available for you health wise? Do you run? I mean, your back, that's got to be tough.
yeah, I mean, I get a lot of, still with between work and, I'm still a kind of a on the go type person. I don't, I'm like you. It was always hard to sit still. I just kind of have to be doing stuff, ADD, whatever it is, ADHD. But
Yep. No, for sure.
my biggest thing was just the changing my diet. And it's like you don't realize all the little symptoms and all the little ailments, all the shit that's wrong with you. Like people that have, people always are, everybody's got these symptoms, and it's like they're just like, it's just part of getting older. Bullshit. Like so much of it is the freaking food you eat, and all the toxins you're putting into your body, and all this shit. So I got really serious about my diet. And I mean, I only eat natural food. I eat organic vegetables, fruits, nuts, seeds, um, meat that is not, I don't buy store-bought meat anymore. I buy a grass-fed. I bought a, third of a cow, and I eat tons of fish, and it's like I've never been this healthy.
How are you preparing fish now that you don't bread it, obviously?
You can get gluten-free flour.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. So okay, working it like that. All right.
Yeah, I mean, I have gluten-free pasta. I mean, I don't eat a lot of carbs anyway, but I really don't eat much processed food. I still just, like last summer I grew a giant garden. I mean, started canning food and preserving food. I mean, it's like I've kind of taken this whole health thing to a new level, and
It's kind
it's
of
been
weird shit that you probably in your 20s you would never thought you would have done. But like
no.
I got into gardening too, man. I love it.
Oh, it's good for the mind and the soul, and then the food is so awesome to eat. I mean,
Oh my god. right, right. I got like raspberries, blackberries, strawberries, blueberries. That's pretty much what I got going on here because I'm on the lake and I don't have as much property. But at my last place, I had acres. So I mean, like we would, I probably had like a half an acre garden with cantaloupes and watermelons and cucumbers and tomatoes and all that shit. It was terrific. Um, I spend for me it's real weird because like when we're busy in the summertime, like I can't get into the gym. We got a home gym, but in the winter, like right now, like dude, I'm in the gym constantly hitting the weights, like, and I don't have hands, so like everything I do is straps. Like I strap everything to my wrists and stuff, and try and get everything I can. But with work being as seasonal as it is, it's got to be even harder for you because it's like it's an exercise in mental durability to get through the 3 or 4 months in a wheelchair when there's snow on the ground because it sucks. Like it's
Yeah.
not, I go places and they push all the snow into the handicap spot. Like it's a big pain in the ass. But um, staying in the gym definitely helps me out with that stuff. Uh, been nice for you lately with the Cubs have been pretty good.
Yeah, but they're definitely tanking now. They're in the rebuild mode again. They're gonna
I know
suck.
my White Sox are awesome. I can't wait
Yeah,
for
my brother's big Whites and my mom are big White Sox fans, and they're crushing it.
oh my God. We were, because, we couldn't go to games and stuff. I would put the TV out on my deck and I was having guys that were Sox fans over just to, sit on the deck and watch some baseball games and stuff like that. Uh, but anyways, I don't want to keep you too much longer, man. I enjoy talking to you. If you're ever looking for someone to talk to, give me a call, man. I'll gladly, I know you said you ain't got a lot of friends up there. I like to have a conversation. So, let me know how you're doing and stuff like that. Um, I meant to talk more about Muskies with you, but I think we got more talking about like, just life in general. So if you have time, you know, like to do another podcast and talk, fishing a little bit more.
Okay.
It's it's a weird conversation to have because, you were such an expert at it. I'd like to have more conversations where someone who's listening to it could get something out of it because I'm always amazed when I go fishing with someone how terrible they are at it. It's like I mean, I would go to that fly-in up in Canada, and the guy's like, I brought this entire suitcase-sized tackle box to fish with, and I'm like, why? I brought a backpack that's got 2 trays in it. I'm going to catch 3 times as many fish as you are. Like you're hauling that thing up here and you're going to waste all this time, like switching lures and everything else. Like, I don't know. You know, I read the books that I read and did the things that I did. I would go to that trip as soon as the ice was out. And the only bait that I would throw the entire week, except for if I want to catch a couple of walleyes, was a reef hog. It was like a tandem spinner bait, like a big, huge spinner bait with a bucktail on the bottom. And it had 2 hooks, single hooks on there, but I would take one of them off because with the Northern, like I don't want to mess with the 2 hooks. And
Yeah.
I would just throw that bait like that and catch tons of fish. These guys are throwing like things with 3 sets of trebles or wasting all kinds of time taking baits out of fish and everything else. And I'm like, I could shake most of the Northerns off when I got on boat side when I had one hook in them. Uh, so just like, stuff like that. But I'm glad you're doing well. How old are your daughters?
13, and then my youngest will be 11 here in about 10 days.
Oh man, good times. I when my sons got out of 8th grade, I was like, I got to find a girlfriend that's got a 6-year-old so I can, start wrestling all over again because, man, I can't stress it more. It's been the greatest fun of my life is to do the things I've done with my sons. Um, yeah, no, it's been fantastic. Are both girls similar? Are they into the same things or no?
No, they're polar opposites. Um, yeah, they butt heads, quite a bit, but you know,
Sure.
for the most part they get along, but they're two different types of people. One's kind of quiet. My older one's a little more quiet and reserved, and then my youngest one is friggin' more like me as a kid, just hyper and
Yeah,
never
yeah,
stops talking and
right.
you know, yeah, they're two different types.
I got twins that are completely different, man. They're fraternal, but they're they're not identical twins. But man, one will hermit himself up in his room, and the other one is constantly got to be doing something. But he was the kid that in grammar school they made him sit on the bouncy ball because he couldn't sit still. You know what I mean? The whole HD, AD, all that stuff. But
Yep.
um, it's good to talk to you, man. I'm glad that you're doing well. I tell you, I was always impressed with you, but there definitely were some times where I was like, man, I don't know how this guy's going to live to be 50 years old when he has to go drink every single night. You know what I mean? That's pretty rough. Uh, yeah, and I mean, you got to find somewhere where there's some good looking women because, yeah, Wisconsin's not it. That's a lot of big girls up there.
Dude, and I've been thin and fit, most of my life, and yeah, I haven't had a girlfriend in, I don't know, a year and a half, almost 2 years, and the one I did date was from Rockford. I had to go down to Rockford to see her.
Wow, wow, yeah,
Yeah.
wow. Now I'll tell you what, I've kind of been out of it for I don't know, almost a year now, probably. And I dated a girl for quite a while. You know what? The wheelchair thing has not been a girl problem. Like that's women are different breed than dudes. I mean, we're shallow, like all that other stuff, but like women have been awesome as far as that goes. But I don't know, I kind of given up now. Like it's just like I don't know, the whole COVID thing, it's impossible. This whole thing's it's like, you got to find some girl that doesn't care and she's probably got, probably going to make you sick. But
Yeah, no shit.
you know, and I don't know how it is up in Wisconsin, but I know you guys were on fire for a while up there as far as the COVID shit went. But
That's still bad.
yeah, right, right, right. Well, it is what it is down here. There's a little more mask wearing, a little more, all that stuff. But it's been crazy. Hopefully, I know you're probably super deep in Trump country up there. Uh, so I mean, the craziness that's been going on lately, man. I got friends that are praying there's a civil war, and I'm like, man, I think you need to read a history book. You're gonna shoot your neighbors and stuff. Like it's too weird. I mean,
Yeah.
hope it goes down. I hope it's uh, that stuff passes and everything's good. But I'll cut you loose, man. I appreciate you doing this.
Hey man, no problem, bud. It was great catching up with you.
Good seeing you. Good seeing you. I'm glad things are going good. I hope that your daughters do well. I'll be checking back in with you.
All right, man.
Take care. Take care.
Take care, Bill.
See you. All right, I gotta figure this phone thing
I
out
got,
now.
yeah, I got to figure out how to get off of this thing.
Well, I've never done it on the damn. All right, let's see here. Oh, stop video. I can do that.
Oh yeah,
Did
I
I get
guess I.
it? All right, let's see. Stop. Okay. I gotta figure out how to get that fucking thing, right? I think. I think that I'm down there, right? Man, I think I still got Chad on there somehow, though, right?